Hey, once again, you are listening to The Upgrade. My name is Gary Muttley. He is the one and only
Len Carmichael, Landmine Studios.
What's going on, Len?
Oh, another day, another dime. I don't even get dollars at this point.
Just better than being unemployed, but...
So, my company, I think I mentioned this to you off air, but my company announced last Thursday, or maybe it was the Thursday before that. I don't know, the days are just jammed together at this point. Have you noticed that? Is like, the day is, I don't know exactly what day it is. I have an idea, but it could be today or it could be 3 days from now, and I might not know the difference. Anyway, a Thursday ago, my company announced that we should expect layoffs coming in February, basically.
Oh,
but
wow.
They didn't want to do it before the holidays. They wanted to be nice and like let everybody get through the holidays, which, I appreciate it, but that just means that we're all going to be nervous for 5 months.
Yeah. Well,
so how does that help?
I mean, I know that feeling because let's just say that the organization that I work for was talking about layoffs at the beginning of the month. That was a deadline that was set, and then supposedly they're still talking to the union, trying to avoid it. So now, instead of having a deadline, now it's just like any day could be
the worst day
when they drop the hammer on that.
Right.
And I'm hoping, and with the way things are structured, I think that I'm safe, but you never know until you know.
Yeah, that's how it is with me. It's like the department I work for is one of the departments that basically can't be done without us. Like the company can't keep going without us doing our work. Now, whether that means they're going to keep everybody in the department or not is a totally different story. I know the department will survive because the things that we do have to be done in order to keep the lights on.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that my job, which is not doing that specific work, but just managing the work, because, right now I'm project manager, I'm compliance director, and I am also agile scrum master for the entire department. So I'm covering 40-ish people, and I'm the only person doing any one of those three jobs, and they have to be done to make sure that our department runs smoothly. But is it something that could be spread out to other people? Sure.
Right.
Like, do I believe that I'm absolutely safe? No. Do I think that there's a high probability that I'll stay? Yes. But I've already started, getting my feel for what other opportunities might exist should I need them. And I think the writing will be on the wall a lot sooner than February. And you can always tell based on language in meetings and how people deal with your work when when they know they're going to phase your ass out.
Oh yeah,
because they start asking you deeper questions and wondering if your work is backed up and etc. Hey, is all your stuff on the shared drive?
Yeah. Once they start asking you about the things that you do,
how do you do this and how does it work? Then you should know. So I'm going to keep my eye on it, and I'm going to attempt to not get caught with my pants down. But hey, if worse comes to worse, I will just join that unemployment line and fight everybody else for money.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through that because I've been laid off many, many times in my life. With what I do now, without getting too deep into it, it's site specific. So I work at a certain site, and there's other sites, and we have a very small staff. So if they cut me loose, they basically have to shut down the site, which I don't think they want to do.
Right, which makes it
they spent
harder.
a lot of time and money setting up the site.
Yep.
So it would kind of not make sense to shut the thing down. But you never know. And like I said, I won't know until I know. So
see, one of the things that I thought maybe they might do as a cost-cutting savings measure is that we haven't been in our office, which is a satellite office compared to our home office in New York City. We haven't been in our satellite office since March. We're not going to be back in there officially at least until January 2nd. And as you know, with the way things are out there right now, January 2nd ain't no real number. And it'll be over a whole year since I'll have sat at my desk by the time I end up back in there. So, at that point, we'll have been working from home and getting everything that needed to get done in a year done and on time, and in most cases ahead of schedule. So then it begs the question, do we need to pay this rent? Because if we don't need to pay this rent, keep them home, but keep them on, because that's budget right there to cover.
Right. Well, that's the next thing that a lot of people are talking about, just the idea of how this is changing business in that way, because all these people are paying all this rent. And it's like, you know what? Maybe we don't need all this space.
Right. We can get the digital age has made it. So what I was saying, I was actually talking to my mother about this, and I was like, if this happened, all this stuff happened 20 years ago when the internet was just like really booming and like people were just finally getting cable or digital internet and not dial up into their houses on like a grand scale. If this had happened back then, kids wouldn't be going to school virtually. Kids would be falling behind.
Oh, it would be
businesses would have just absolutely crumbled to nothing.
Yeah,
like
because there were no.
It just didn't exist.
No iPads. There were no.
None of it.
I mean, you had laptops, but
yeah, but
just the speed alone wouldn't be able to handle it.
If you say to me that kids these days can't get internet or laptops, I'm not surprised, because depending on your monetary standing, it is tough these days to still get these things if you're below the poverty line.
Right.
So, I mean, I've seen video and pictures of kids sitting outside of Taco Bell's and Starbucks, etc., glomming off of their internet because they don't have it at home. Take that back 20 years and basically nobody had it. I had it because my mom needed it for work.
Right.
But otherwise, I would have still been on dial-up. So it's like, I can't imagine how bad this could have been in a different time frame.
Oh yeah, it just would not be achievable. Period. But to play off of something that you mentioned, Governor Cuomo the other day, during one of his press conferences, actually announced that they will be releasing the semi-official post-COVID-19 dictionary of New York State.
Oh, Jesus.
And one of the terms that was shown that's in that dictionary is Blur's Day.
Okay,
which is when all the days of the week just start to blur together. Exactly like you're talking about, because I feel the same way. Like, I have to look. Like, I'm at the point now, because I work from home and log in from home. I don't even know what day it is. I just know it's a work day or not a work day.
Well, last week I was on a meeting with a coworker, and we both were 100% convinced that it was Tuesday. And that was at 10 o'clock in the morning. We got back on a secondary call in the afternoon, and she turns to me and she's like, I know we said it was Tuesday, but you know what? It's actually Wednesday today. And I was like, you are right, it is Wednesday. And the reason I knew it was Wednesday after the fact is that I knew I had put the garbage out, but it just, because garbage comes in my neighborhood on Wednesdays, but my brain was not registering any of that.
Yeah, see, I get the alert for when my garbage has to go out because otherwise I won't even know. Like, I get it, and it's like, okay, I got to take it out now. And like, the other day, I have a couple of TV shows that I watch, and I DVR them, and it's like, I just happen to go look at the DVR, and since I don't even know what day it is, it's like, oh, there's a new show. I forgot today's Wednesday. Had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, oh, exactly. I've got something to watch now. It's just that bad.
And one of the worst parts is that Sunday Night Dread is like Saturday. I have Sunday Night Dread on Saturday. I'm like, fuck, I gotta go to work. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's only Saturday. Like, yeah. I lose track so much that a Saturday I could still feel that the dread of Monday creeping in.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. By the way, another term that is also in that dictionary is COVIDiot.
Yes, well,
someone who underestimates the danger the virus poses. See also Moranovirus.
All I have to say is Mike coined a term, or at least put me onto a term, branch Covidians.
Oh yes, that's a great one.
That is perfect.
Oh man,
because they're willing to go down in that fire, bro.
Oh, they are. They clearly are. They already are. And they're showing no signs of stopping.
None at all.
To me,
one of my friends posted something about just the sheer stupidity of all the followers that are willing to just jump like lemmings off the edge of the cliff. And my response was, but they're the ones that will tell you that you're stupid, that we're being stupid, and that we're sheep and we're following. And I'm like, it hurts to know that there are this many stupid people on the planet, and that I am fucking connected to them in some way constantly. I have to run into them. I went to school with them. They're around. They work. Some of them may even work with you. You know what I mean? It's like, how can this many stupid people exist? How did we get this far as a society to have this level of stupidity available still?
Did you hear what John Leguizamo said?
No, I didn't. I'm sure it's going to be fucking beautiful.
This is the last thing I'll say on it because we want to get into other things and not dwell on this. But Leguizamo said that Latinos for Trump is like roaches for Raid.
The man ain't wrong.
Which is one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard because it's totally perfect. It's like that dude wants to wipe you out, and yet you love him.
Yeah, you're sucking, just kissing that dude's ass.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But anyway, so instead of dwelling on politics, which we do enough of already, we're gonna go in a different direction with this show, with a very well thought out concept that we came up with just a little while ago.
Question from the peanut gallery.
Yeah, we have decided that this is going to be a quarantine questions episode. We've got a bunch of questions that we've got from a few different people, and it's up to you if you want to name them or not. You know who you are. And
yeah, I'm not going to call these people out who ask questions. If you asked it, you're going to get your answer.
You know who you are, and you know what you did.
And a couple of you asked some questions that I decided I'm not going to answer, and you can kiss my whole entire ass.
So that's what we're going to be doing in this episode. It's going to be interesting and a little different, and if you people like it, maybe we'll keep doing it in the future. or at least do it as part of like a different podcast with a guest or whatever. We'll have a little segment once in a while, because I don't know if this will take up a full episode every time.
I think it will, but it just depends
this time,
on the questions.
definitely. But maybe, we'll see. So let's get right into it, and we can go back and forth on these. I'll go with the first one, which is, what was your first overall concert and your first hardcore show?
So why don't you answer this one first, and then I'll jump in afterwards.
All right. The first concert that I ever went to was in June of 1988. It was the Monsters of Rock tour at Giant Stadium. It was Kingdom Come, Metallica, Dokken, the Scorpions, and Van Hagar. It was a very interesting show. There was a garbage fight during the Scorpions set. And I think we talked about this on another episode that hasn't aired yet. Or maybe it did. I don't remember. But that set is up on YouTube. And as far as the first hardcore show I ever went to, that was the last Thrash Bash at Lemoore in 91, which was Typo Negative. It was White Zombie before White Zombie blew up. White Zombie, Typo Negative, Biohazard, Nonfiction, Leeway, and the Cro-Mags, the first time that John Joseph and Harley got back together.
I remember that.
Absolute bloodbath. For somebody who had never been to a hardcore show before and never been to anything other than an arena show, it was just
wild. Just absolutely wild.
Yeah, it was crazy. What about you?
So, not to be surprising, because it's not going to be surprising. My first concert was definitely Kool and the Gang concert. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was in DC, and Aretha Franklin played. And Kool and the Gang was one of the opening bands for her. I don't remember exactly everything about it. I was about 6. It was 1982 or 1981-ish, so I was like 5 or 6. Right. And we all took a family trip down and stayed at this big, lavish hotel and went over to the show. Like, it was a one-of-a-kind thing that I barely remember, but I know I was there. There are articles on the internet that have been uploaded about this concert. It was like a funk R&B concert in DC around that time. It was wherever the Capitals used to play at back in the day, whatever that stadium was.
Okay, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head at all. And then, as for my first hardcore show, it was Sick of It All and Biohazard at City Gardens in Trenton.
Nice.
I had seen Biohazard on Headbangers Ball. Mm-hmm. And I heard that they were coming to town. Some friends were like, yo, they're coming, let's go see it. And I was like, all right. And I was legitimately scared out of my fucking mind because Trenton had a large contingent of Nazis that would come to the show.
Oh, wow.
And me being like a 16-ish year old black kid, I was basically hiding in the corner, but also enamored at just the wildness of the time. So
what year was that?
It was 92.
Okay.
So I don't remember exactly when what day of the year it was, but it was in 92, and I was a junior in high school basically, and it was a great fucking time. And then after that, I actually didn't go to any more hardcore shows. I went to see some ska shows, and then the next hardcore show I actually went to was with my friends Dan and Tony. We went to see Civ and it was Civ and a couple other bands at the Stone Pony.
Okay.
And that was in 95.
Interesting. Next question. Well, you know what? Let's spin off of that for a second, because this was another question that was on there. What about your first time on stage?
Whew. So, all right. I started playing guitar. We talked about this at some point. My uncle bought me a guitar, and that was in the 80s, and then I subsequently broke it, and I didn't play again until I was about 20, when I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna buy myself a guitar and just teach myself how to play guitar. And since that day, I haven't really stopped playing, other than these last 8-9 months, because I haven't really played at all since COVID has come through the door. But that's a whole nother topic here nor there. But I bought that guitar, and I just started learning, and I went to Rider University. I transferred there after leaving Mercer County College, and ran into some friends, people I've known from around. A friend of mine introduced me to a couple other people, and they were in a band called the Vermicious Knids from down in South Jersey, and it was like kind of a new metal / hardcore band. Back in the day, it had a little bit of everything, but they wanted to just start an actual hardcore band. So they gathered a bunch of ragtag idiots like me, who were kind of just starting out, and we're like, let's start a new band. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So we practiced for like 6 months in this kid Kyle's basement, and it was year 2000, and we played this local bar in Ewing Township called Lanudi's. It's the first time I'm ever getting on stage. Nervous as shit. I'm playing a Les Paul copy through my 5150 that I still have at the studio right now, and some trash cabinet that I had at the time, and it sounded horrible. I didn't know anything about, all I knew was tuner pedal and plug into the head. That's it. And we sounded horrible. We were really not that good as a band. All the songwriting is as basic as you can imagine it, but I had the greatest time.
Nice.
And now I'm 20 years later, I'm in my mid 40s, and I still look forward generally to playing shows.
Well, my first time on stage was a pretty weird one.
Okay.
I was still in high school. This was 1990. And I had a first period electronics class. And the kid that sat next to me, that was kind of my partner in the class, was also the drummer for the stage band at the school. And he lived in Riverdale. And one day, he knew that I played guitar. I hadn't started playing bass at that point. He knew that I played guitar, and he'd heard me, jam a little bit once in a while, kids would jam in, the auditorium or something, and I would fuck around a little bit. And he says, hey, you play guitar. I got this thing that I'm doing with some friends of mine, and our lead guitar player just crapped out.
Can you do it?
And I'm like, okay. This was on a Monday. The gig was on Friday.
Oh, Jesus.
So, it was some kind of homeless benefit show at Horace Mann High School in Riverdale in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And we were doing 2 songs. We were doing Free Fallin' by Tom Petty and I Remember You by Skid Row.
Oh, Jesus.
This was when, early on, I guess I could kind of play lead guitar, a skill that I've long since lost. Sort of like how, early humans had a tail and then lost it. So let me give you the layout of this band, okay? The guy, Jason, who was the guy in the stage band, he looked like a nerd, but he was a maniac. He was always, up on the field across the street from school, partying, hanging out, smoking weed, whatever. Real good drummer, though. At least for for high school. I can't really measure his skills to levels now. The singer was an ample Asian female, let's say.
Okay.
Who was a decent singer. The other guitar player was this skinny Asian kid who owned like 20 LA Guns shirts.
Yeah, but LA Guns was actually fun to listen to.
I was never a big fan.
I enjoyed it.
He clearly was. And the bass player was this tall, weird, nerdy white dude whose two favorite bands were Depeche Mode and Queensryche. And then I'm this long-haired wacko kid who was always wearing like trucker hats and shit, playing like a purple BC Rich bitch. And like, it was just such an odd combination.
And you ended up, did you riff that thing real hard?
That was Monday. We practiced Tuesday and Wednesday, and we played on Friday. And we actually did pretty good. And I guess I did all right, because the only thing people asked when we went back, like the backstage room was upstairs. The only thing people asked were like, "Yo, who played the solo?"
You're like,
so I guess either I pulled it off, or they were just like, "Look at this fucking asshole.
This guy ruined it.
This guy sucks.
He dropped the ball.
What a mess." But other than the drummer, I never saw any of them ever again to this day.
Really, never, ever?
Never. I didn't know them. I went and hung out with them to practice, and then after that, like,
never saw
had no
again.
connection with them. It's very bizarre.
Out of here. No way.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my my first time on stage, and that set me on the path to just, wanting to do it more and more and more. It was a couple of years before I played on stage again, because the first band I really played live with was like a Faith No More rock band, and that was the same band that played. We were talking with Rich Hall about playing that Battle of the Bands at his high school.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that.
The first year we played, it was that band. Second year, it was a totally different group of people. But I think it was the first year we did it with that band. So it was a totally different experience.
Were you nervous the first time you got on stage?
No. Oddly enough, I've never been nervous before going on stage. Not from the very first time. Like, and I mean, I guess that first time was cool because, like, we weren't really prepared, so I just didn't even. It was just like, well, fuck it, it's gonna be what it is. You know what I mean? Like, right. We didn't have enough time to practice, and we knew it. Like, but it was also only 2 songs, so it was like, whatever.
Either you got it or you don't get it.
Yeah, we'll do it and do. And it's funny because I take it seriously now, but I also kind of have that attitude where, like, you know what? If I make a mistake, I don't go up there wanting to make a mistake. But you know what? Sometimes shit happens, and we've talked about it before, probably on the podcast, but definitely in personal conversations. It's like, you know what? Like, sometimes those little flaws add some character to it. Like, you miss a note or something. Like, I've never been in a train wreck. I've never been in a train wreck where you got to stop the fucking song. Like, okay, maybe.
Wait, you want to talk about Lily for a minute? Stop this song!
Once. I do remember one time with Billy Club, we played up in Middletown, and we were doing the song Body Cavity Search, and at one point, because there were no monitors or anything, we were playing out in the parking lot, and we just got lost and just looked at each other like, and I was just like, I have no idea where the fuck we are right now.
You're like, what are we even doing right now?
But I mean, I could count on one hand the number of times that's ever happened. I mean, nobody's perfect. Once in a while, you're gonna hit a fucking mound of shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just normal for that to happen.
It's very rare, and it's not like I don't take it seriously. It's just I look at it like, we're gonna go and have fun and do our thing, and if there's some imperfections, then so be it. I'm not worried. I've talked about it before. It's like filling in for bands on like short notice. It's like, to me, it's all about fun more than anything. Like, we're certainly not doing this for the money. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So it's like, if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? So that's the way
I 100% agree with that.
That's always been the way I approach it. And yeah, once in a while we might slip up a little somewhere, but overall, we're, the bands that I've been in, we're always on point, and we have a good time doing it.
I mean, I've definitely been on stage with bands that definitely were not ready for TV. We were definitely not camera ready by any stretch of the imagination, but we were out there having fun and doing it. It does get embarrassing when, you're playing a totally different song than the rest of the people in the band.
Yeah.
But what I'll say about that is sometimes you just keep going until the wheels come all the way off.
Yeah.
Or you get through it. And the biggest thing that I ever learned was what Henry Rollins said in one of his specials, is that the audience doesn't really know what they're supposed to be hearing. So it doesn't matter how much you fuck up, as long as you don't sell it as a fuck up. So if you fucked it up, just keep playing like as if nothing happened, because otherwise they'll know.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And with Billy Club it's a little different because we're established and people know the songs and stuff like that. But I've been in plenty of bands where it's like, you know what? It's a new song. We fuck it up. They don't even know.
They have no idea.
It's like you just and people are like, yo, you guys are so fucking good, man. That new song's fucking great. And it's like, little do they realize
that wasn't a new song.
Yeah. Well, little do they realize we skipped like a whole part because we just fucked up, and like they don't know.
That wasn't no goddamn new song, son. Fuck out of here.
Song. It's like, that's not a new song. But if you think it's a new song, that's cool. Whatever.
Hey, we'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of times when Descent was like really kind of starting to take off. Mm-hmm. But, we had either a new member or just things weren't gelling just right. And we would play shows, and people would literally come up to us, especially with Mike, the newer drummer in the band, and be like, "Yo, you guys were so good, and your drummer is the best drummer I've ever seen." Yada yada yada, and we're like, "This motherfucker did not play one song right at all, not even once. The only thing that was right was the tempo. Nothing else about what he played was good." And people are like talking about how good a show it was, and it's like, man, imagine if we were actually playing what we were supposed to be playing.
Oh man, yeah, that's funny. But that's, listen, things happen sometimes, and like I said, it's fun as long as you're not embarrassing yourself, like you said.
Oh, I've been there though.
That's all you got to worry about. I'm very lucky in that I've never really been in a spot where I embarrassed myself.
See, I've never personally embarrassed myself, Okay, maybe once I embarrassed myself. So I was playing for Man Alive. So I had joined Man Alive maybe 4 weeks before we went to play this show in Asbury Park. And I hadn't played bass in 10 years at that point.
Right.
And we go to the show, and like I had been practicing and I'd been to band practices, but I still was a little shaky on parts because I'm just not that great of a bass player, and I wasn't as familiar with the songs as I should have been. So we got to a song where I was supposed to start, and we had to start the song 3 times, like with a crash note, and I'm like standing there like, hey, what's going on, guys? And they're like, you're supposed to be playing. Oh, I got it. No, I don't got it. And I just could not remember the riff. I couldn't remember at all. But I never forgot the riff after that day because it was such an embarrassment that I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But otherwise, you know, it's not very often that I've personally embarrassed myself. Now, I've been in situations, one I brought up already, where we were playing for you. It was my old band, Breath of Silence. We were playing at Castle Heights.
Castle Heights, yep.
Was it your birthday party?
Yes. It was one of my birthday shows. What year was that? My God.
Oh, you know 2002?
I think it was 2002, but I still have the recording from the soundboard.
Oh, ditch it. Ditch it. It's not of us. It's of you guys.
Yeah, it's of us.
Yeah, it's not yeah, and you know what I used for that? I still have it upstairs. It's just a little mini disc recorder,
yep.
And I just plugged it in. I was like, let's just get the volume in. That's it.
That was 2002.
So we're playing that show, and the lead singer of our band at the time didn't want to open the show. She felt disrespected that she had to open the show, that she had to drive to Queens, that she had to do this, that, and the other thing. And something wasn't going right. The timing was slightly off on a song. Meanwhile, she's facing the back wall the whole time we're playing. Would not even face outwards.
Oh, yeah.
And something's going wrong, and she's just yelling into the mic to stop the song because we weren't playing it the way she needed it played to do the song. And it was the most embarrassing, worst moment that I've ever had to do.
I remember you guys were playing, and like, I think I was up at the soundboard, and I think Mike was the sound guy, and Mike's like, what's up with her? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. And I will tell you that we never played one more song with her. I'm friends with her now to this day. Like, we're cool. Because do I care what happened 18 years ago? No. Like, whatever. Right. It was embarrassing at the time, but I'm over it. But yeah, there's no way. It couldn't go on that way. So
yeah, I'm sure there are still people that remember that show because of that.
I'm sure. And it's just, I'll never.
And it was just weird.
I still get people that are like, you were in Breath of Silence, weren't you? And I'm like, fuck. How can I get away from this? Please. And I like, the thing I pray is that they don't ever bring up that show.
Yeah.
Like bring up anything else.
Please don't mention Castle Heights. Please don't mention Castle Heights. Please don't mention.
Because if you say Castle Heights, this is the only time we played there. Only one time. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I saw you guys at Castle Heights. Fuck. Damn it. So from that leads into another question, which kind of feeds off of this, which is how did we meet and become friends? Which obviously was, you know, back before 2002.
Well,
was
when this question came in, me and you were talking about it, and you weren't 100% sure on exactly how it happened, but I can piece it together, and it's like a couple things. So number one, the guitar player of Breath of Silence originally, he left the band at some point to go in the army, and left the band in my care. So then I became band dad. He was notorious for begging and pleading and trying to get shows for the band, because they were a bunch of young kids from upstate New York who didn't really know a lot of people like that, and frankly, we weren't a good band at the time. Like, we ended up growing into being a decent-ish band, but early on, so I'm talking 2000, 2001, 2002, we were sloppy, to say the least. And, you know, he would beg and go on the hardcore website.net or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And, you know, talk to people, make friends, because this is back when the internet was just booming or blooming or whatever you want to call it. And I guess he got your ear somewhere.
Well, I think I may have, and listen,
he used to throw shows too, so right. He might have booked you guys somewhere.
I don't remember. And listen, I respect the hustle, because everybody's got to hustle. And his name is Rich.
Yep.
Good dude.
I love you, Rich. I got no problem, Rich.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he was on that show finding tip.
Yeah, which, like I said, respect the hustle. Like, everybody back then, especially,
you had to
trying to get a show in a different area from where you were. You had to do whatever you could. You know, the internet was not what it is now. And I think I was actually introduced to him by Mike.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that, but either way, yeah, I met him, and I remember going up to Club Culture.
That's exactly Chester, what it was. Club
which
Culture.
Is where, yeah, he used to book shows there.
He used to book there.
You know, and we went up there a bunch of times, and Mickey's crew played up there also, and like, I think I went up there with Irate also. So, you know, Rich was hustling, and through him, and I guess through interaction, because, you know, people nowadays, everybody's on Facebook, everybody's on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. The hardcore website message board in the 90s into the early 2000s.
That was the place to be, baby. If you weren't there.
The only other thing that had as much impact as that, and it was a slightly different crowd, although a lot of them overlap, was the old AOL hardcore music message chat room.
Yeah, there was a lot of overlap on that, though.
There was a lot of activity going on in both of those places, and there's a lot of people that I met through each of those that I'm still friends with today. The hardcore website message board had a huge impact. A lot of it was kind of based around that Castle Heights scene and kind of the Queens people, but it spread out because, well, Vic, who owned the website, you know, he lived right over the border from Queens on Long Island. Mm-hmm. And Big Larry, who was his best friend, who was another enforcer on the hardcore website message board,
yeah.
You know, he lived right there, right in Queens on that border. And you had me, you had Walter, you had a couple other people that were all moderators and like doing different things on that site. And there were a lot of people from out of state that made connections through that site. There's still to this day people that talk and are like, oh yeah, I remember talking to you in the hardcore website message board, blah blah blah. And it's crazy just how much impact it really had.
Bro, that's, I mean, honestly, how I know a lot of the old heads that I actually know are either specifically from, like, we'll call it Fat Pat, who was on our show earlier this year.
Right.
I know him literally from going to shows, but I also know him from the hardcorewebsite.net because you meet at the show, and then you put 2 and 2 together, and you're like, yo, I was talking to you on the fucking website like 2 days ago, and oh, you're that guy? Oh, all right, cool. Like, the website didn't have pictures. You didn't like have an avatar of yourself. Like, nobody knew. It was literally just names.
Right.
And you could make 100 names. You could be like 15.
Yeah, you could be like 10
people.
different people on there.
And that happened all the time. So, Rich somehow linked up with you and got us booked at Castle Heights, and that was the first time I met you.
Right.
But we had already been talking on the hardcorewebsite.net for probably 2 years before I even like physically met you in person. And then, I don't know, we've just stayed in touch since then. And every year that goes by, we're more and more in touch. And now at this point, I talk to you every day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
and we have similar interests in many aspects.
Yes, many. Yeah, because I was on that message board from early on, because it started really in the mid '90s, and I was on there. You know, and it changed a lot over the years, but I was on there from very early on.
So I know that I was on that website in '98. So that's when I first started going on there, and the reason I know that is that I started going on there when I was at a previous company to the company I'm at now, and when I went on the hardcorewebsite.net, it hit their servers, and then I get a message, should you be on this website?
I've heard so many stories like that.
Because, you know, the idea of hardcore at any point in a URL tag, at least initially, will be flagged as porn.
Oh, for sure.
So I remember it vividly getting a question from our IT department, like, yo, what are you doing? And I was like, no, it's about music. If you go to the site, like, you don't have to flag this specific one.
Yeah, I was working in the music business, so nobody gave a shit.
Right, whatever.
But, you know, I was on there. God, I started working for the hardcore. I started working for Red Distribution 96 or 97. No, it was 90. Might have been 97. I don't know. Either 96 or 97. And before I even owned a computer at home, I was on the computer at work and was just on there constantly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, when I'm talking in 98, 99, or whenever it was the only place I could get a T1 connection. So, you know, that was the only place I was really doing any actual, like, fun searching, etc. At home, I was still on dial-up. So, you know, you make a comment and wait 6 minutes for it to fucking upload.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it was back then. But yeah, so you and I interacted a lot on there, and then met in person at that show, and then just stayed in touch over the years.
Yeah, I mean, our bands have played together over the years. Like, you've been in Billy Club the whole time, but you've also been in Mickey's Crew and a couple other bands along the way. I've been in endless amounts of bands because, you know, I'm quick to quit. And, you know, for whatever reason, we've ended up on similar same shows, similar shows, or like your friends have been playing shows that we're on and you show up at the show, or I come to a show that you're playing because you're playing with friends, or I just wanted to come see you guys in general, whatever, like for
or like that Castle Heights show, I'll ask you guys and try to get you on a show with us.
Right, or when you guys got us on that show in Brooklyn, like 3 years ago, I guess it was at this point.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, to the person who asked the question, hardcore. That's the answer. Like, that's how I know Gary. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's how far back it goes,
20 plus years of
20 years at this point.
Interaction. And as I said, each year the interaction has gotten more and more steady. I don't think there's been a year that's gone by that we haven't talked, and there are certainly been long stretches of not having interaction, but it's never been about being mad or whatever. It's just life. But now ours is like intertwined at this point, so
I mean, I do have to get you up to the Bronx again, and hopefully it will be less eventful than the last time you were here.
Oh, bro, that was so much fun.
Len came up to the Bronx one time to chill with me and Walter and watch UFC.
At what bar was it?
Well, no, we watched it at this kid's house.
Oh, we watched it at the kid. Then we went to
who
the
that
bar?
was. He was a friend of Walter's. But then we went to the bar afterwards with us and Joe Sacco, and madness ensued.
Yo, somebody almost got thrown out a goddamn window.
I guess I'm gonna have to tell the story now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell the story.
All right, so we're all there chilling, and Len is straight edge. So we're at the bar. Len's probably drinking water or soda or some shit like.
Let me get a Coke on the rocks.
Yeah, Walter and I are getting fucking hammered because we were drinking from the fights at the kid's house, and some girl comes up and starts talking to Len, and we're just sitting there chilling like whatever. So if something's gonna happen, something's gonna happen. Whatever, do your thing. Welcome to the Bronx, homie. So then, I guess the girl was there with her man and starts hard grilling Len. Now, keep in mind, if you don't know us personally, first of all, Len's not a small dude.
For if you don't know us personally, I'm about 6'2", and at the time, I don't know how long ago was this? I was probably like 240.
This was probably, 10 years ago at this point?
Yeah, about 10 years ago. So maybe I was like 230, 240, but I think I was
still living in the Bronx at that point before I moved.
I was also lifting heavy at that time. Like, This was the time where I was like kind of in pretty good shape. So, I was in the gym constantly.
But also, you of the group of us, like, you probably weighed the least.
Yes, I was the smallest of the crew.
Because I'm like 5'9", and at that time I was probably like 300-something pounds. Who knows?
And Walter was well over 3, and Sacco was over 3.
Up there. Sacco was up there.
I was the skinny one at like 240.
Yeah.
And I was the tallest one as well.
Yeah. So this dude starts eyeing Len. And I catch it, and I'm, listen, I got the eye, like I could see trouble coming, because that's kind of always been my way, and being a bouncer kind of helps with that skill, especially when I worked at Castle Heights. And I just look, and I'm like, oh boy, gonna have to keep an eye on this. And then I go to give Walter the heads up, just in case we got to get our hands dirty. And I'm like, yo, dude, this chick is talking to Len, and her man is eyeing him up.
And I wasn't paying any attention to her man because I was talking to her, like, whatever.
Well, but you see, that's what the homies are there for.
Right.
You handle your business, we handle our business.
I was just minding my damn business, bro.
So I gave you the heads up, and then I go to give Walter the heads up. And Walter just picks his head up, loud as fuck, and is like, "Who?" Because he's fucking hammered, and I'm like, "Oh no, oh no, this is gonna go very badly." So he just starts hard grilling, dude, and I'm just like, "Oh boy, I guess this is
this is happening."
I was watching to see if it would escalate, and then, of course, Walter makes sure that it will.
It escalated.
So, and meanwhile, Joe Sacco was up the block handling his own business, and he comes in, and he just, I give him the nod, and he's watching, and Walter's just like eyeing the dude and slowly getting closer to the dude. And then he looks the dude right in the eye and he's like, "What's up?" And the dude is like, "What's up?" And he has no idea what is coming for him.
Well, because of the group, I'm the one black dude, so he didn't know that we were all together.
He didn't realize, He didn't realize you were rolling with the crew.
And it was an Irish bar. That's the only other thing I remember about it. Like, or Irish-ish bar.
Right.
And, I stuck out like a sore thumb in there.
And just to paint the full picture here, the place had just been renovated, so it's all brand new, full glass windows.
Ceiling to fucking floor, glass windows. I think there might have been like a 2-foot lip where there wasn't.
So finally, Walter is up in this dude's face, and I mentioned the glass because that will come up later. Walter is fully up in this dude's shit, and is like, "What's up?" And the dude's like, "What's up?" Has no idea. And then finally, Walter just takes a drink and throws it in the dude's face. And I'm like, I'm just like, all right, show's on. And he's ready to go throw at this dude. The owner's like
running out of nowhere.
The owner is like shitting a cylinder. Like he's shitting solid gold because in his mind, all he sees is one of us grabbing this dude by the neck and putting him through those brand new windows. Which at that point was a very real possibility.
God
because the dude is slowly starting to walk back as shit is popping off. And then he's just looking and he had a bottle in his hand. And Walter's ready to throw, and I just look at the dude and I'm like, "Yo, I don't think you want to do that, homie." And right behind him, because he's backing up towards the front door of the bar, and behind him, he doesn't even realize, is Joe Sacco with his hand out, ready to just palm this dude's face.
Just do him in.
And I end up mushing the dude's face. Sacco's ready to get him from the other side. He wouldn't even know what hit him. The owners are like,
no.
And the dude just bolts out the door.
Never to be seen again.
Girlfriend watches him. We end up going outside looking for him. He was already gone.
Long, long gone.
We go back in, and the owners are like, "Thank you for not destroying our place." And then we drank free for the rest of the night because they were just so happy that we did not enforce this.
Ruin their entire bar.
Oh yeah, which, like I said, was a very real possibility.
So, man, that was a good time.
That was Len Carmichael's adventure in the Bronx.
It was a good adventure. I would do it again. 10 out of 10.
That was definitely a classic moment. Oh my God. So we'll have to get you back up here.
Hey, I'm down to come up. Just let's cancel this COVID thing first.
Yeah, definitely got to shake this COVID thing, and then hopefully we won't have to put hands on anybody this time around.
So, how did you meet the guys in Billy Club? I know we went over this before, but I'm not sure if that was lost in an episode.
I think it was lost in one, a mystery episode. Well, first I met Martin. I used to go to shows. I used to go to a lot of metal shows. And, through that started going to more hardcore shows also, because when I used to go to metal shows, living in the Bronx. I'm taking the 2 train down to like Roseland to see Pantera or something, or Helmet, whatever. And you're on the 2 train. You look over, you see a kid wearing like a Metallica shirt, or not a Metallica shirt, but like some underground shit. Like you see a kid wearing like a Pantera shirt, or like some metal shirt, or like a Leeway shirt or something, and you're like, oh, going to the show? Mm-hmm. And then everybody starts talking, and then suddenly you got a whole clique together. So like, that's how I met a bunch of guys in the Bronx, and Martin was one of them. And Barry, who was in Go to Mentis with Martin, the band he was in before Billy Club. That's how I met those guys. And there was a whole other crew of guys, like guys from the band Proof of Purchase and Blackout and a couple other bands, a couple of Bronx bands. And like eventually through them I met like Close Call, who became District 9, stuff like that. But it was all just that clique of like, okay, we're all rolling to the show together. Because you just meet up on the train and like just got down with them. And I started doing that. I actually took Martin to the Lollapalooza tour. What year was it? A friend of mine drove down. It was the year that Alice in Chains played. It was 1993. So I was already friends with Martin at that point because Martin rolled with us. That was the year that Rage Against the Machine played first.
Right.
And like Fishbone and Primus and Alice in Chains all played. He rolled with us. It was me and a bunch of friends of mine, that I was friends with from high school. Drove down to Jersey to Waterloo Village and saw the show there. So I knew Martin pretty well at that point. And there was that whole clique of people that were all rolling together from the Bronx. Chucky Brown, who does a lot of videos that are on YouTube from that era, like from Bond Street and Wetlands and stuff like that. He was part of that clique also. But, we met and we were all chilling, and through them, I met Glenn, because we would go to shows. That same clique wouldn't just go to Roseland or whatever. We'd go to Wetlands. We'd go to the Marquee. We'd go to CBGB's. We'd go to all these different places, and we'd roll together. And, those guys knew other guys, so I would get introduced to different people. And Glenn was part of, a group of Westchester kids that used to come down. So I got introduced to Glenn through that. And, I was at the second, I didn't join Billy Club until 2001. And they were already around for 5 years before that. But I wasn't at their first show at Wetlands. I was at their second show, which was in the basement of the Pyramid. And that was when I first met Malone. Because, Glenn and Martin told me, yeah, we got a new band. So I went to chill with them and see the new band. And I met Malone and I met Rod, who was the original guitar player. Mm-hmm. And then I saw them many times over the years, played shows with them when I was playing with my old band Distance, and then playing with 5 Minute Major also. We played together a lot. And then, over the years, Rod had left. Malone switched to guitar. Matt Stevens, who was a friend of theirs from high school, came in and started playing bass. Got to be friends with him also. And then things weren't working out with Matt Stevens. And, I filled in one show for them, which was actually 20 years ago last week. It was on my birthday in 2000. So October 13th, 2000, I filled in for them.
That was your first foray into...
Yeah, I wasn't a member of the band, but that was the first time I was on stage with them.
Right.
Filling in for Matt Stevens, but, they had told me they were having a lot of problems with Stevens. I filled in the one show, and things really clicked well. And they said to me flat, like I was still on the fence because I was playing in 5 Minute Major and there was talk about, like, we had already put a record out on a French label, and there was talk about if we could write a new record, you know, they would put it out and bring us over to Europe. So I didn't want to bail.
You didn't want to, like,
I didn't want to bail on 5 Minute Major, you know, besides being friends with all those guys, but there were issues within that band also.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people weren't getting along, and it just got to the point where I realized, like, things weren't going to happen. And I said to Billy Club, I didn't quit 5 Minute Major. I was going to do both bands, because 5 Minute Major had gotten to the point where it was just not really doing much, because people just weren't getting along. And it wasn't me. I was kind of in the middle of it, so I wasn't really comfortable with that either. And finally, I was like, you know, I was in regular touch with Glenn, and Glenn, finally I said to Glenn, I was like, yo, let's do it. And I joined, you know, they fired Matt Stevens and brought me in, and
it's been that way since, basically.
It's been that way since. That was June of 2001 was my first show with Billy Club.
Okay, so like almost a year after when you filled in.
Right.
Almost. Like 9 months.
Yeah. So, you know, next year will be 20 years that I've been playing with Billy Club. And after I joined the band, things started moving, because then, like, none of them owned a computer.
So you were doing the hustle we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So suddenly I'm like, yo, let's get the website happening. Let's get, you know, Chris B had been handling their website, and I was like, all right, you know, it's cool that Chris is doing this, but now, you know, I'll step in and we'll make some moves. And then, you know, 3 years later, we started traveling. You know, 2004, we went to Puerto Rico, went to Europe, and then, you know, things just kept going from there. But that's
awesome. It was awesome to see. Like, for as much jealousy as, like, people will have of other bands getting to do things, when I get to see my friends actually do cool stuff, it's always great.
Yeah, and I feel the same way, because, like, you know, with our tight clique, because, you know, everybody knows, like, Billy Club, EGH, Irate, Sworn Enemy. Obviously, Sworn Enemy went and did things on another level, but, like, with EGH and Irate, like, we were all started doing shit, and we were always happy for each other. Like, you know, there was never any jealousy or any kind of hate or anything. Like, and when we would play together, it was insanity.
It was just a party.
Yeah, because that first trip that we took, the first real trip that I took with that band outside, you know, like, of the country on a plane, was that we talked about it with Phil, that Puerto Rico invasion tour. Went to Puerto Rico. It was Sworn Enemy, EGH, Irate, Billy Club, and it was insanity.
Yeah, man, that's a nightmare for anybody.
Oh yeah, anybody else?
Well, that's what I mean.
It was cool for us.
Anybody that crosses your path,
yeah,
is just they're not prepared for what they're about to get.
Yeah. So, you know, but that was, you know, that was the way, that was the path. And now here we are, you know, 20 years later, almost. Everything's on hold because fucking COVID sucks, but, you know, we're lucky we've gotten to do a lot of stuff, and more importantly than that, even with the problems that we've had, you know, which are out there, and one day we might delve into it deep on this podcast. You know, the four of us are still friends after all this time. You know, I mean,
you can't remain friends. You can't be in a band that long. It just not work.
I mean, yeah, I didn't meet Malone until later, but like Glenn and especially Martin, like, I'm friends with those guys for the better part of 30 years.
Right. But what I'm saying is, to keep a band together for 20 years, and especially in a situation where you're not making money.
Yeah.
it's about friendship. It's not about anything else.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it's not like we can't pull a Van Halen and have one dressing room as far away as possible from the others.
Everybody gets their own tour vehicle. Everybody gets their own plane.
Yeah, we each had our own dressing room in Castle Heights.
So you each went into the bathroom separately?
Yeah. We each had our own separate curtained off area of the basement.
Oh, man.
Like a 5-foot square. Oh, boy. So, now, what about you? How did you meet? I mean, obviously you're not, you're involved in a couple of things now, but, I know Descent was the last full-on
big
project
I was doing.
But how did you meet those guys?
How did I meet the dudes in Descent? So there are two specific factions of Descent, and only one person crosses over on them. So the original band was Mitchell with Ant singing, Dalton playing drums, Tony playing guitar, and this kid Eric playing guitar. And Tony hit me up because he had recorded with me 2 other times down at Landmine Studios when it was in my basement at my house. And he was like, hey, I got a new band and I want you to record it. And I was like, cool, I'll do whatever. And I had never, they didn't have anything else out. It was literally a brand new thing. And they came in and they recorded, and we did something that I don't normally do, which is everybody played together basically. So both guitars, bass, and drums all together in my basement, but the guitars and bass were digital. So I was just going in as DIs, and then I just reamped the DI tracks. We did a little bit of cleanup to make sure that like things were riffed as closely as possible, but literally we cut a 4-song music piece, like a piece of music, in about 2 hours because we did it live. And then Ant, the singer, sang over it. Okay. So fast forward 3 months. So we did that in like June. And in November, we basically announced that Bottom Feeder was broken up. So that's the band that I was doing with John Wren, Pat, and Gretsch from Swashbuckle, and our drummer at the time, Vince, moved to Hawaii, and he's still in Hawaii now. And that's what kind of caused Bottom Feeder to stop existing, is that Vince moved away. So I was like, I'm not doing anything, and so if anybody has anything, and Tony hits me up and he's like, yo, we think Eric's quitting. Would you be interested in playing in Descent? And, I'd already done the demo, and I enjoyed the demo. I thought it was cool. It was not that much different than Bottom Feeder in, like, general style. And I felt like I could bring something to the table, so I was like, sure, I'll come jam with you at a practice. Let me know once Eric quits, because I'm not going to do one of those things where I force somebody out of the band. Right. But if he quits, you let me know. I'll be there the next week. So that was like early November, and then the first weekend in December, Tony hits me up. He's like, yo, Eric's quitting, and we have a show at the end of the month. Can you do it? I was like, I can't do the show, but I will join the band. You guys will have to do the show without me. So they got Eric to play the last show, I guess. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I went to practice, and the first day I was there, I learned all 4 of the songs on the demo. I mean, I was already intimately familiar with them, so I liked the guys in the band, and we had a really good time the first, we'll call it, year of me being in the band. And we played a ton of basements in Philadelphia, and we got to be pretty tight. Not physically as a band necessarily, but just as friends. And then we got the offer to play This Is Hardcore 2017, and it was a little bit much for a couple people that were in the band, and they quit. So we actually sat quietly from February till almost May trying to figure out who was going to be in this band. And we had gone through a couple tryouts. I think we tried out 4 drummers, and maybe 2 or 3 singers. A couple people flaked on showing up to do it. And all this time, we were not announced on This Is Hardcore because, like, Joe doesn't do the announcements till May.
Right.
And, like, the week before the announcement came out, we solidified our lineup. We had Mike Polaro jump in on drums and Mexico come in and sing. And within 2 weeks of the two of them being in place, we were already back out there playing shows because Mike is just a really good drummer, so he was able to pick it up. And, you know, if your vocalist is missing lines, it's really not that big a deal, especially with where we were at as a band at that point.
Right.
Kids kind of knew who we were, and they were singing along, so he could just pass the mic, and things were going well.
Okay.
So that started the second iteration of Descent.
Right.
And I would say that it's more metalcore version of Descent. And we still even went through more lineup changes. But really, everybody in that band is either somebody I worked with previously or someone I knew through hardcore in some way. Okay. So like Mike Polaro, the drummer, he was actually in Float Face Down, and I recorded the first Float Face Down demo. Mm-hmm. So I met Mike when he was 15, and I just didn't even remember meeting him because it had been so long since I had met him, and I only met him for one day.
Right.
Like 10 years previously. So when he joins the band, he's like, "Yo, bro, I know you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You recorded Float Face Down." And I'm like, "Oh." So like basically everybody that was in a position in that band I had recorded at some point before I was even in the band.
Wow.
And then, you know, I basically became co-band dad with Mitchell, and me and Mitchell still remained super tight friends. You know, we have a sort of project going on right now called Thorns of Reality, and it's basically a spin-off of Descent. It's Ant, the original singer. It's me and Mitchell. Mike played drums on the one song we've released so far. He may end up playing on more if we have opportunities or decide to do things. COVID is one of the biggest issues because right now it's just hard to get people together.
Yeah. Well, that and get together for what? Other than jamming. Like, it's not like you're playing shows or...
There's no... Yeah, we're not trying to get geared up, but that's one of the things is that we took Descent so seriously through the last show that we played that everybody is kind of burnt out on pushing. So we've all agreed that whatever we're doing right now is literally just about having fun and writing good music together and nothing else. The other guitar player that's involved is actually the last fill-in that Descent had. It's just our friend Justin. He lives in North Jersey, like far, like an hour and a half away from where we jam. So, you know, we're jamming maybe once a month, if that. And we'll see where we go. But, you know, and I've recorded Justin's bands. He's in this band Rest in Piss. So again, it's all bands. Like, I tend to stick with people that come to the studio and become friends with me, and then ask me to do a project. Like, I don't normally end up in these random things where I don't know anybody, except for when I joined Man Alive. So I joined Man Alive at a period where Descent was a little slow, and I wanted to do something a little more not technical, but noisy. And the drummer is Chris Ross. He was in a number of bands over the years, but most notably Nora. And we became friends because Bottom Feeder recorded a cover of For the Love Of in Chris's basement for some comp that Chris was doing. I mean, I had known Chris a little bit, but like that was the back and forth of that is what kind of really sparked our friendship. And he asked me when Tom Schlatter from Hundreds of Awe quit, you know, he was like, we need somebody to come play bass. So I was like, all right, I'll come play bass. And then Nate quit the band. Nate was from the bass player from Ensign. He quit playing guitar. So I jumped over to guitar, and then I got my friend Mike to join. He's the bass player from number 12, looks like you. He came down and joined and actually became really good friends with the other guitar player, Brian, who was in Celebrity Murders and what other bands was Brian in? Glassjaw. He was in one of those huge bands. I'm blanking.
Kill Your Idols?
Kill Your Idols, yeah.
Yeah.
So Brian's been in like a whole bunch of stuff, and like it's a band of dudes that have all been around the block, but we're all also old and can't like just focus on music. So we do it when we want to do it.
Right.
So we have a new version of this Man Alive going right now, and our friend Sean stepped in to take over for Kwame. Kwame moved out to California, so he couldn't do the band anymore, and that's why we broke up the original time. But right now, the band is exactly the same, just substitute Sean for Kwame.
Gotcha.
And we have, I think, like 12 songs done, but, you know, we haven't even started to release it because there's no fucking point in releasing anything right now. Especially as a new band, to like, you drop new music as a new band and you're not out playing it because you can't be out playing it. It's kind of a waste. It's a wasted drop because by the time you do get out there to play it, everybody will have forgotten you did it.
Yeah, it's already faded. And it's funny because I see a lot of bigger bands having that same kind of struggle. Like, do we put a record out or do we wait?
Do we put a single out? Just put a single out.
Some bands are putting stuff out. Like Seven Dust is putting out a new record next week.
Really?
But yeah, but then and they're doing like a live streaming thing the day of the release. But then there's also other bands that are like, you know what, we're just gonna hold on and wait. Top of my head, I don't remember, but I know I've seen a couple of things on Blabbermouth talking about, you know, whatever band is decided to wait and hold off on releasing their new record until they can tour.
Hey, I can't blame anybody for waiting, but there's going to be a point where you're going to feel like the music is stale even if you waited. So
that's like, one of the things I was thinking about. It's like, you know what, like I've had this argument because we've been writing with Billy Club, and it's like, do we put it out? Like, we haven't finished it yet, so we haven't really had to have that argument just yet. But when we've got it down to where we have like a good group of songs, it's going to be like, well, do we put it out now? Do we wait? Like, because then the other part of it is like, you know, as a smaller band, it's like, you know, people are going to forget about you if you don't try to stay at least somewhat in the mix, you know? So it's a tough call, and I see both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act, but for us as this new Man Alive band that doesn't even have an actual name yet, and we have like songs kind of fleshed out and sort of recorded, but we lose nothing by waiting because there's no one waiting to hear it. As a new band, you're in a spot where it's okay to wait. But in for a band like your size, it makes sense to, in my opinion, to get something out there. Maybe you don't drop the whole record, but you drop one of your favorite songs and then can the other ones till it's time, or you space out your release. You do 2 now and you do 2 in 6 months, and then hopefully at that point COVID's out and you drop the other 2, or you know, you got to space it or something. You got to figure out something.
If it was up to me, like, I'd try to do different things with it. Like, I'd try to do a video or something, but obviously, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not up to me, and there's a budget and all kinds of other shit involved, you know?
Right.
So, it's a whole other thing. All right, so, next question. Let's stick with music, but go in a different direction and talk about gear.
Okay.
If you could take, and you know, they mentioned guitar and bass. Well, for a gig or whatever, if you could go with only one amp and one guitar, what would you use? Or it mentions guitar and bass because obviously I'm more of a bass player, but you know, if you have preference that way also.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go first, and then I'll go from there.
So if I could only take one guitar with me, and I didn't have to worry about the guitar at all, so I'm not worried about it getting lost or getting broken or stolen or whatever, I have a ESP Eclipse, like a real ESP Eclipse, not one of the LTD ones. Not that there's anything wrong with the LTD ones. I have an LTD one, but I have a real ESP that I used to carry around all the time, and it is my favorite guitar to play. If I could only take one, that is my choice. I would always take that one. But as I've gotten older and playing more often and in like really various locations, I've focused on bringing cheap guitars that sound good, because I don't care if they get stolen or broken or whatever. Like the Ibanez's, as I've talked about before, that I paid $100 for and then spent maybe $150 upgrading them to be what I want them to be. If somebody steals that and it's like $250 gone, I'm not going to be crying like I'm going to be crying about my like $1,400 ESP being missing.
Right.
So that cab wise, I am taking one of my Mesa cabs. I don't care if it's the standard size or the oversize. I feel like the density of the cabinet combined with the vintage 30 speakers that are typically in them hit all the notes that I need a cabinet to hit. And I hate going to shows and playing inferior cabinets, because it's really hard to dial in your set. Like I can dial in an amp really quickly in a cabinet that I understand. Right. And that cab I understand completely. As for heads, if I'm not worried about it breaking and I'm not worried about it getting stolen, it's my Bogner Uberschall.
Okay.
There is something about that amp for a guy who plays like me that makes it that I don't even have to touch the dials. All I have to do is pick harder. So that amp is really responsive to how you play. So there are people who will play that amplifier and they're like, I don't know, it doesn't bite well enough, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. And I'm like, I have never once had that fucking problem. I don't care if I have the gain on 3 or if I have the gain on 7, I can make that amp sing because I pick really hard. So it makes the amp crunch. But if I want to lay back and not be as overbearing in a section, I can do that. It offers you that ability to vary your playing, to have dynamics. And even with an overdrive pedal in front of it and a noise gate and this, that, and the other thing, I can make that amp do whatever I want to do. It's got a lot of thunderous lows. It's got a lot of clarity. But when I say clarity, I mean pick clarity. So when I'm picking, I can really hear every note, but it's still spongy. Like I have a VHT amp that I do love, but it's super dry.
Right.
So that dryness means I have to always be 100% on point with every pick attack. With the Bogner, I can be a little sloppy and it'll still sound great. Right. So if I'm choosing Bogner into a Mesa Boogie cab and I'm playing my ESP through a, whatever tuner, it doesn't matter what tuner, a noise gate of some sort, most likely the Endless Blockade from Lone Wolf Audio, and then either the 33 pedal or a TS 808 or a TS9, any of those three would be generally where I want to be. It just depends on which band I'm playing with.
Right.
And okay. I don't need anything more than that.
Okay. For me, I'll mention guitar first, just because I do play guitar a lot at home. I haven't played guitar live in a very long time. Well, not that long. The Little Greg Show was the last time I played guitar live.
But that was 2011, right?
12? I think it was 12. that was, when Billy Club played, I played guitar. That was the last time I played guitar live. As far as amp setup goes, I would run either a PV Triple X, which is my personal favorite amp, or that snakeskin Randall head that I have, which still sounds really good because I took it down to your studio and tested it out. I don't play through that amp at home. I have my own practice amp set up, so I haven't really had a chance to sit there and tweak it and get it to do everything I wanted to do. But with some prep, I think it might be even better than the Triple X.
Dude, that thing was singing.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had that thing for a very long time. I had that thing since the early 90s. And somehow managed to keep it and never sell it. Cabinet, whatever. I'm not that picky, so I wouldn't even...
Well, I'm a cabinet Nazi, so...
Yeah. But once again, I don't play guitar live that much, so I don't really... and when it comes to guitar gear, I'm not as hands-on, so I don't... I don't have as much of an opinion. I prefer amp overdrive. I use sometimes a Boss overdrive distortion just to get a little extra, but with a good amp, I wouldn't even need that. And as far as a noise gate,
we talked about this. I disagree with you wholeheartedly on the amp only distortion, but I understand where you're coming from. I sometimes will blend that in. So like if I'm gonna do reamping for a band or a band is coming in, I will set up something that is the tone I want, and then I'll also set up something that's the tone that they want, and typically that's something without the overdrive. And then when we get to the mix, they're like, it's not biting enough, and then I just turn my track up and I'm like, there you go, there's that bite you were looking for. I was right after all. But I find that amp distortion, while it sounds good, it is missing top end clarity, and it has a little too much low end flub. It also has to do with the pickups. So if you have like EMGs, it's less of an issue than if you have like a stock regular non powered pickup.
Right.
So if it's just a magnet, you may need an overdrive. If you have a Fishman or an EMG or something along that line, you probably could get away with just going with amp.
Well, the other thing with that too is that, I'm not thinking about it so much in a recording setup as opposed to live. Like recording, you're always mixing a couple of different amps and trying to get, a different type of sound. So it's a little more complex. But as far as guitar goes, I would go with what I call the Blue Meanie, which you saw when I brought it down, which is an Ibanez RG that I bought at the beginning of this year, and I did some upgrades on it, and I put a Lace Deathbucker pickup in there, and the thing sounds great. It sounds great through my PV practice amp setup, and it sounds great. When we ran it through that Randall and the other amps you had down there, sounded great. And I think if I really was playing guitar a lot more and had the time to sit there and really dial in a sound, I could get,
exactly what you wanted.
Serious sound out of it. And everybody's different. I'm a firm believer that 90% of your sound is from your hands.
For sure. I mean, I sound the same. It doesn't matter what amp you put me on, I basically sound the same. Yeah, and it's probably the same thing for me also. So it's just, we have different ideas on setup. Once again, I'm not hands-on as much because I don't play guitar live really. But, I think if, that's the sound that kind of works for me. As far as bass gear goes,
I've been playing a Sire M3 bass that I really do like, and it's lighter than what I had before. But if I had to choose anything, I would probably go back to my old bass, which was a Black Cherry Ibanez BTB 5-string, which just sounds monstrous. But
so what about it sounds like? Is it the pickup? Is it like the body? What makes it sound so good?
It's got an EQ built into it, and it's got Bartolini designed pickups in it. And it gives it that little bit of extra growl. The Sire that I have is lighter in weight. Ideally, what I would love to do one day is just get a custom bass that's a combination of these two basses, because there are certain features from each one that I really like, but I have yet to find something that has that combination, you know?
Right.
And, you know, not being an endorsee, I'm not getting a custom Ibanez anytime soon. So...
Yeah, I got you, 100%.
Yeah. But it's just got this different kind of growl to it. And this bass also I've had for 15 years. I bought it in 2005. There's newer models. There's one that I've had my eye on, and eventually... You know, when COVID ends and I know that I'm in a financially stable spot, I might get this other one that's blue. I think I showed it to you.
Yeah, you did. You sent me a picture.
You know, it's just an updated version of it. It's got newer, because that bass has what they call a monorail bridge, which each thing is a separate piece of metal for each string.
Okay.
And these are just, you know, updated. You know, they've changed the design on them over the years, so they're a little different. And I've heard they carry the sound a little better. I have yet to actually be hands-on with the new version. But I really, you know, I enjoy that bass. I really like the Sire also. It's a little different, but I think, like I said, if I could get a combination of the two, I'd be totally satisfied. But the Ibanez kind of gets the edge on it a little bit.
Because it's just the thumbs, it rings through harder.
Yeah, and what I would use for an amp, right now I have a Dark Glass Microtube 900, which is great. I loved my old Ampeg SVT, but the thing was so fucking heavy.
Well, that's
Just
where I was going to go.
Carrying it around.
If I was playing bass, I have to my left a Spectre bass. It's like middle of the road, like about $1,000 worth bass. I got it in trade from Swashbuckle for some work. Okay. And I actually really like the bass. It sounds great. It's an active pickup. It does a little bit of everything I need, so you can roll it off or you can roll it forward. So if you want like the clanky clank or you want it to be smooth, you can do a little bit of everything with this bass. But if I was going to play bass live, the head I would actually drag with me or want to drag with me is an Ampeg V4. But that thing is a goddamn tank. It is the heaviest thing on the earth. I think it's heavier than lead. Like it's insane.
Oh yeah,
I put it on the shelf at the studio, and I actually built in supports for the shelves recently. I put up a 10-inch metal brackets that are like a 1/4 inch thick and almost unbendable to hold the shelf to the wall, because I could, every time somebody would bump the shelf, I could see it waggling and waving. Yeah. And I'm like, this fucking V4 is coming off the shelf. It's definitely taking this whole thing down. So, yeah, those are the two things. Otherwise, I don't have any. I mean, I like the Dark Class pedals in general, whether it's the B7K or the Alpha Omega pedal. I like both of them. I could make a bass sound out of either one and be perfectly happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with my rig, but I changed it because I didn't want to carry all this heavy shit around.
Right, you don't want to break your back anymore.
Because what I had, and I sold it to Joe Sacco, and even now he's using a Dark Glass also. I had an SVT3 Pro. There was a rack mount.
Yep.
And even that was heavy as shit. Now I've got the dark glass. The thing weighs like 9 pounds. If I want to fly somewhere, I could throw the thing in a bed.
Yeah. Yep.
You know? But just traveling to any kind of show, it's like between that and the bass, it was just killing me, you know? And I love them both, and they sounded great, but I've got something that sounds comparable.
And it doesn't wreck your back.
Does not weigh nearly as much. But given, all things being equal, if you ask me my ideal, I would go with the Ibanez BTB and the Ampeg.
Right. Because it just covers all the bases that you want covered. But if you don't want to break your back and blow your knees out, you go with something a little bit lighter. Right. And those are the things you have to think about as an older man.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I just turned 47. Like, I'm not trying to carry around some fucking 30-pound amplifier into a crowded room, having to fight people just while I'm trying to wheel the fucking thing through, and like, it's just how it is, you know what I mean? And I love the dark glass, and I still haven't tried. There's an Alpha Omega head now also.
Yeah. Which
is what Joe got, and one of these days he's going to come over here and let me fuck with it.
Yo, bro, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Maddie from Year of the Knife just got a whole setup from dark glass, like the dark glass cab with a new dark glass head, and she was playing it the other day, and it sounded absolutely enormous.
Yeah, see, that's cool. I definitely want to try that head and see how it is compared to the micro tubes that I have. But I can't go carrying around a fucking Ampeg like that anymore. I just don't have the fucking back for it.
Yeah, exactly.
A workout is nice, but like, chiropractor is not really on my list.
So the Bogner, that's one of my biggest issues with the Bogner. It's super powerful. It's loud as fuck. But with it being loud as fuck, that means it also comes with an output transformer that's heavy as fuck. And it's offset, so it's not, the output transformer isn't directly beneath the handle. It's down. If you're holding it, it's all the way one end. So then the amp tends to do that thing where it it's like playing an SG where the headstock basically once it hit the floor, it's the same situation.
It's bad enough when guitars want to take a dive, but amps, you don't want them taking.
That head weighs, I think it's like 67 pounds.
Yeah, fuck that.
It's just it's a slog to carry it anywhere.
But that's what I mean. Once I got that dark glass,
you're like, oh, never again.
Like, I love the sound of the Ampeg, but can't do it. I'll take the slight difference in sound just to not ruin my back at every show.
The important part is 99.9% of the people in the crowd couldn't tell you the difference anyway.
That's true too.
So
that is definitely
just go
true.
with it. Like, while I may be a cabin Nazi about like things, I know it's about me and my comfort level playing. It has nothing to do with what the crowd hears, because the crowd don't hear it at all. They wouldn't. I could play out of my first Sony that's mic'd up, and they would be perfectly fine with it, as compared to me playing out of.
They wouldn't know the difference.
A Mesa cab that's smoked to the gills with exactly what I want to be, what I want in it. It wouldn't make one fucking ounce of difference.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And these are the things you got to worry about as you get to be an older musician. It's like,
what's going to kill my back?
What's going to destroy my back?
So let me tell you a story real quick about it, because since we're talking about gear in general, you saw my post that I picked up that VTM 120 this weekend, right? So I saw it on Craigslist, and I'm a Craigslist guy. Like, that's how I end up with a lot of the stuff that I end up with. And I messaged the guy. I was like, "Yo, bro, I'll take it if you'll go with this price," because he had a price up, and I didn't want to pay that price, but I wasn't also, I didn't give him like a rip-off price. I just brought it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And he agreed to it, so I drove up an hour and a half to go meet this guy at his house. But in his email, he's like, "Hey, bud, I'm in a wheelchair, so you should bring someone with you to help you carry it." And I'm thinking he means like, "Oh, you're going to have to carry it out of the house and put it in your car. Might be heavy, whatever." And I'm like, I was like, "I move equipment all the time. I'll be fine. No big deal." So I drive up there and I pull in his driveway, and he comes rolling out the house in his wheelchair. Super nice guy. We get to talking, and we head inside, and he's like, "Okay, we'll pull that down." And this motherfucker had both these cabs and a head up in his fucking attic with one of those pull down with the stairs that flip off. It wasn't even just like a regular walk up into the attic. No, it was like the super dangerous is going to rip out of the goddamn ceiling thing.
It was some shit that fat guys don't want to fuck with.
Yeah. And he's like, "Yo, the stairs are rated for 300 pounds. I was like, "Well, I'm about 285 right now." So as soon as we get one of these cabs on here, we are well over the rating limit. And I was like, "God damn it." So I go up in the attic, and I'm going to tell you, this guy, apparently a couple years ago, he had a really bad car accident. Some lady ran a red light and T-boned him, and he actually ended up as a paraplegic. He's not quadriplegic, but he's paraplegic. And he was working on having like one of the most kick-ass collections of amplifiers and guitars. This dude had probably like 75 guitars in his attic, and then he also had amps like Friedman's and Marshall Super Leads from like the 70s, and like he had all this stuff, and he's like, "I'm just starting to get rid of all of it because I'm really never going to be able to build my studio upstairs like I planned to, because I can't even get up there." He's like, "So I'm just starting to get rid of everything. I'm going to keep the Friedman amp, and I'm going to probably sell everything else." And I was like, "Damn, this sucks." But then
you're sitting there with your mouth watering.
And I'm like, I said to him, I was like, "Yo, bro, when you start to sell more of this stuff off, can you let me know what you're selling so I can make an informed decision before you put it on Craigslist, whether I want it or not?" So I go up there and I'm digging around, and he's like, "Hey, it's over here." And I had to move a bunch of stuff to get to these amps. But it's basically in pristine condition. Hard part is there's no one else there but me, and I got to get two 4x12 cabs, and they're not like Marshall cabs that are light. These are fucking old school mid-80s Missouri monsters out of the fucking attic.
And he's probably just sitting there like, "Yo, I told you, son."
I told you. Yeah, he's like, he did. He hit me. He's like, "I told you should have brought somebody." And I was like, "I'll figure this out." So, man. I yank him over to the edge, and there's no banister, so I could have easily just fallen out of the thing. Yep. So then I'm like, I walk down the stairs, and I get about halfway, and I start shimmying the cab, and then I just walk it down these stairs as I'm making sure I keep my feet all the way to the outside of every step so that I don't break it in the middle.
Yo, it's like what I said to you about the steps going up to the studio when you were in Patterson.
Yeah, same thing.
Yo, that's that dude's nightmare, bro.
Total nightmare. So
you just look at that and you're like, you could just see yourself flying right through it.
Right through it. Ugh. So take down one cab, and then I take down the head because the head's easy. I wanted to break in the middle, and then I take the other cab down, and just as I'm getting the cab down, I'm like, I'm gonna lose this thing, and I'm like doing the dance, like trying to get my hands on the handle, and I stepped back and I just grabbed everything as I got my foot on the bottom on the floor, and I'm like, huh. And then he quickly puts the ladder back up so I could set the stuff down, and I wanted to die in that moment because these cabs weigh, I don't know, 60 pounds each. something like that. And it's not like 60 pounds is that heavy, but it's unwieldy because it's in a big box.
Yeah,
and there's no fucking handles to like really grab onto.
Yeah.
Then I'm an asshole. In my mind, these things had wheels on them. They do not have wheels on the cat. And I didn't bring my wheeled dolly because I could have just stopped at the studio and got my wheeled dolly and then dollied that shit out. No, I had to carry it, out his front door, down his whole sidewalk, and then put it into my car because I couldn't pull my car all the way up because his shit's all ramps for his wheelchair. I got a great deal. I got a great deal, but I definitely had a struggle.
You got a great connection for more.
Yeah. He hit me up with a text message the next day, and I responded, and we'll see where it goes. If he remembers to text me, great. If not, I'll just catch it on Craigslist when it goes up.
I mean, it's so whack that happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, I feel bad for him, and he seems to be in great spirits. He seems like a really nice guy. Things are going okay for him, but clearly it could be going a lot better if it hadn't happened.
Right. Well, the flip side of it is, and I've had this happen even with some of my own stuff when I decide to sell certain things. It's like, you know what? Like, if he's okay with that whole situation, it's like he's not going to do anything with it. He's probably happy to put it in the hands of somebody that's actually going to put it to use and enjoy it, Yep. So, you look at it that way, it's like he's probably okay with it in that sense. But I can imagine you going up there and just mouth watering like, oh. Look at all this gear.
Side note to the gear thing, last gear thing. So when I was building the studio, I was selling and I was trading amps and selling things just to make sure I had like cash flow coming in because because I wasn't working as regularly in my basement because I was in the process of moving and building and this and the other thing. I sold the Soldano Hot Rod 100, which was basically a Soldano SLO without the tag label because it was one of the mid-90s ones. As I'm packaging this motherfucker up, I flip it over, and I had never flipped the amp over since I purchased it. I got it from some guy in New Jersey. He sold it to me, and he brought it. We met in Trenton, and he just put it in my road case, and I brought it home, and I carry it downstairs, and I played it a bunch, and it's on a couple records that are out there that I've done. And I went to sell it, and as I'm packaging it, you know what's stenciled on the bottom?
What?
Black Oak, Arkansas.
Oh,
Jim
shit.
Dandy. It was the Jim Dandy fucking head.
What?
I was so mad because I had already gotten the money, and all I had to do was ship it out. And I was like, I shouldn't be selling this amp. And now I can't get it fucking back.
Oh.
Go, Jim Dandy, go!
Wow.
Jim Dandy to the rescue! So,
that's crazy.
That's my last, amp-related topic.
All right. Do we go with another music question, or do we go in a different direction?
Let's go in a different direction now.
All right. Let's go in a different direction. It is well known that you and I, although it does involve different eras in a lot of ways, we're both pro wrestling fans.
Yes. But I don't think we're that different eras. I mean, I guess if you're talking about current era, yes, but when we start talking about what this question is,
yeah,
I think we're pretty close.
Yeah, probably. Your favorite pro wrestler and your favorite era in pro wrestling.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop my top 3 wrestlers of all time. And this is in no order specific other than Ric Flair is number 1. Number 2 or 3 doesn't really matter is Randy Macho Man Savage. And number 2 or 3 doesn't really matter is Dusty fucking Rhodes. So those are my three guys if you're asking me what it means to be a wrestler. And what I mean by that is your on-screen personality is almost unremovable from you as a person.
Right.
You live the life, you bring everything that you have to the character, and you make it believable. I still will go on and watch Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and Macho Man Savage interviews on YouTube because they were entertaining. They were as believable as wrestling could be believable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was an NWA WCCW fan. That was my thing. So we're talking 86 through 89, maybe 90, 91. Sting showing up basically and right. doing the bash at the beach or whatever, like, and wrestling Ric Flair for literally 63 minutes straight. To basically no fall, and it just ended and they cut off the fucking thing. That's my time frame for wrestling. I clearly watched some WWF. I don't like Dickhead Hogan, but I loved Randy Macho Man Savage. The personality, Miss Elizabeth, the fucking elbow off the top rope, the flamboyancy, but still manly at the same time. Like, everything about it. He could do the face and he could do the heel, much like Ric Flair can do the face or do the heel. I like a guy who's just a fucking gritty wrestler. So, though, if you're asking me that, or if I need to take it a little bit further, the Four Horsemen as a whole. But I'm really, really focused on Ole and Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Ric Flair.
That classic Horseman lineup.
The classic Horseman lineup.
Yeah.
Not Lex Luger, not fucking, McMichaels or whatever, like any of these other dudes. Mongo, like none of those weirdo things. Not with fucking Barry Windham. Barry Windham is supposed to be the quote-unquote face on the other side. No, you're not a fucking horseman. Get the fuck out of here. So, that's where I'm stuck at. How about you?
Now, for me, it's a little different because I was very into that classic era. I couldn't name just one guy. But what I'll try to do is give you a couple of names from a couple of different eras and a couple of different times. When I was a kid, I hated Hogan. I loved Piper. And I loved Kevin Sullivan.
Okay.
Because I was a kid that was listening to metal, and here's Kevin Sullivan doing this whole Satan worshiping gimmick, and I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in. The dude's calling himself Lucifer. I'm in. So, there was that, and Dusty and Flair. Gun to my head, Flair is the greatest of all time.
Unmatched. I don't care what anybody has to say.
And
Ric Flair is the greatest.
He will never be matched. And the reason for that is because the whole business is different now. Flair used to have to go and travel to all these different places
by car,
or sometimes fly.
Yeah.
But then, he was also, that dude could have died. He was in a plane crash.
Broke his back.
Yeah, broke his back, and still managed to continue to have a long career after that.
He was still wrestling a few years ago, like randomly.
Yeah, well, that's different because he had to pay off all the ex-wives.
Hey, still out there.
Yeah. So, he had to go everywhere. He had to wrestle an hour every night. And you're not talking about, like, just on the weekends. Like, that dude was doing it all during the week because all these different territories would have their TV on like Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights. So every night he's wrestling. Every night he's having a long match with their top guy. Needs to make their top guy look like $1 million because otherwise he buries the whole fucking territory.
Yep. He's got to make them look good, but still win.
Yeah. He's got to win, but still make them look like $1 million. And go for, what a lot of times was an hour.
Yep. He's got to make it look like the next time he comes, their guy might have a chance to win.
Right. Exactly.
Can't leave him dusted.
No. So nowadays, it's not like that. It's a whole different world. The whole wrestling world is completely different. So you don't have anybody that has to do that anymore. But he did back in those days, and there was no internet back then.
None. There was out
no
there
GPS
just doing
back
it.
then. None of that shit. So he was out there doing it hard way every night, having to get directions, having to make phone calls, cell phones,
sharing cars with people he's supposed to be at war with, and having to dip out at truck stops so that fans don't see them together.
Right. Exactly. Because that was the way the business was back then. So, gun to my head, Flair is the number one of all time. But you got other guys over the years. Like I said, you got Dusty. You had Kevin Sullivan. You had Piper. You had Randy Savage. You had the Road Warriors. And as time went on, you got into different guys. To me, if I had to pick an era, the era that I was lucky enough to see live, late 90s into the end, which was 2001, of ECW.
Oh, ECW, okay.
ECW was untouchable. I don't think anybody will ever understand just how crazy ECW really was unless you saw it with your own eyes. Because those crowds were wild.
I only saw it once live, and it was absolutely wild. But we talked about that previously.
Those crowds were wild. And unless you were there, you will never fully understand just how wild it really was. And I didn't go, I never got to see them in Philly because there was always the ECW arena down there. But I saw them in Queens at the Elks Lodge in Queens, and you will never find an environment like that ever again. Everybody was drunk, everybody was rowdy, everybody was crazy. It's just never going to exist like that. And you had guys from that era. You had a guy like Rob Van Dam, who was the TV champion, and he was constantly working and having 5-star matches on every show. And then you had the guys that did the crazy shit, like the Sandman, or guys like Taz, who was, suplexing dudes through fucking tables and shit.
Mm-hmm. I clearly remember that time because it was right before WWE kind of like really stepped in and screwed them.
Yeah.
And it was always wild to watch it. And the one time I got to see it was just one of the most intense experiences while not being at an actual like music show.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of things that I would say that if you didn't get to witness it in person when it happened, you can only get a small concept of how crazy it might have actually been, and that is one of them.
And I will say, I got to see a lot of WCW shows live also, and even towards the end, WCW was cool in its own way, even though they went completely off the rails with a lot of stupid shit. Guys like Scott Steiner were crazy because the dude was just roided off his face, and they gave him a live mic on television, and then were shocked when he's just, telling Ric Flair on live TV that he's got more loose skin than a Shar-Pei puppy. and then they suspend him with pay, and he's just like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. You know, that was the mess of that company at the time, but it was entertaining.
So Scott Steiner is one of those people that when him and Ricky were teamed up as the Steiner brothers, and Scott was the high flyer, like the energetic one, the thin one. He was the thin one. I loved them as a fucking team.
Yeah.
And then roids. And Scott was just off the rails as Big Papa Pump.
Oh my god, he was a fucking maniac.
And like I couldn't even take him as a personality. I was like, you're just so fucking annoying. And the fucking war with Jeff Bagwell was just so stupid.
Buff Bagwell.
Yeah.
Where he said he once said that Buff was from the San Francisco section of Atlanta.
Yes.
On live TV. He did not give a single shit, and he would do these Roid Rage promos, and I'm sitting there just howling.
I mean, it was funny, but it was also annoying at the same time.
Like, why would you give this man a live microphone?
You should never do that.
Yeah, and then the word is, oh, he's suspended, and it's suspended with pay. The guy's making like six figures. You think he gives a flying fuck?
No,
that he's got to sit at home for a couple
do more roids and fucking lift more weights and come back with muscles on muscles.
He does not give a single shit, and I fucking loved it. He was probably, of all, that later era WCW, he was probably my favorite guy, just because he was so off the fucking rails.
Completely out of here.
Because New Jack would go in coked up and just smash people over the head with a vacuum cleaner. Like, Scott Steiner would go grab a microphone, cut a Roid Rage promo, and then drop a dude on his head.
Yeah. Literally drop a dude on his head.
And it was just crazy. But it was awesome. And, and I also got to see after that at the beginning of Ring of Honor, which, if you're a real diehard wrestling fan, there's a lot of great stuff there. I used to go down to Philly when they started, and then we'll go to the different shows. Like, I saw them in the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan a bunch of times also. But when they first started, they were doing the Murphy Recreational Center down in Philly. And guys that are on TV now, like AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, all these dudes that you see on TV every week. Like, at this point, they've been doing this for 20 plus years. And I got to see them in this little tiny gym in Philly. And it was great to see that and see that grow into something much bigger.
Right.
So, as a wrestling fan, like there's a couple of different eras there, and there's a couple of different names there, but like I said, gun to my head, Flair, without a doubt, is the greatest of all time.
Yeah, easily. It's not even a question for me. Like, as soon as I learned about Ric Flair, and I'm going to call that 1984, I was probably 8 when I found out about Ric Flair. I was like, yo, this dude has everything going for him. I mean, he was always talking about styling and profiling. Like, everything about it sucked me in, even though I wanted to hate him because he was one of the quote-unquote bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
You absolutely had to fucking love him anyway. Like, the promo about not being able to hold those snakeskin boots down was just enough for me as a kid. I just wanted to, like, as a black kid, watching like this blonde hair white guy on, well, like, not even blonde, platinum haired white guy on TV, just absolutely living what I would call a pimp lifestyle. Yep. I was like, yo, this dude is doing everything right. I am on board with this guy. Even though he's an asshole, I love him. Even when he's fighting my second favorite at the time, Dusty, I'm like, I don't even care who wins. I'm here for the show.
Oh, yeah. You're just enjoying it. It was the same thing. Flair versus Dusty, classic.
Classic.
And I want
a spin-off question, but finish it.
Well, just to give props in another direction, I have to say right now, I can't watch WWE stuff at all. Like, it just really turns me off. But watching AEW and seeing
Goldust,
Cody Rhodes,
Cody.
Well,
doing well.
Dustin Goldust is on there also, but Cody is one of the main guys on the show and one of the executive vice presidents. Seeing Dusty's lineage live on through All Elite Wrestling and Cody is a great thing also. And Cody gets a little crazy because he throws himself around a lot and bangs himself up pretty bad because he's gotten some wild fucking injuries in some of these matches because he just puts himself way into it. But just to see Dusty's legacy live on through Cody and through this new company is really cool also.
That's good for him. Good for the whole family.
Yeah, it's great to see that. And if you like I do, if you like real heel shit, there's one guy on there named Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, who is the ultimate heel.
Okay.
Constantly talking shit. He's talking shit on social media also, and he's a fucking classic. Oh, and by the way, let me just mention, you were right on point when you mentioned the Horsemen, because without the Horsemen, stables do not exist as they do in wrestling. There's no NWO. Yeah. There is no Degeneration X.
Without the Four Horsemen running absolutely wild,
greatest stable of all time.
It set the precedent.
Absolutely. And they lived the gimmick. Just like Flair lived the gimmick, they all lived the gimmick.
Yo, I mean, I could just flash the four sign. We're talking it's been 35 years, 40 years almost since this was a thing. And you could just flash the four and everybody knows that you're talking about the Four Horsemen.
Yeah. And by the way, talking about All Elite Wrestling, they're on there as managers, but Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard are both on there almost every week.
So what I loved about the Four Horsemen back then was that they all had a championship of some sort. So Flair was the champ, and then some form of the other three were the tag champs and the TV champs. You weren't fucking with them.
Nope.
You couldn't bring nothing to the table and get over on them. The only way was either the Midnight Express or the Rock and Roll Express or Legion of Doom were going to come in and win the tag titles for a short amount of time, and then they were going to take them back.
Right.
Because you know what? The Four Horsemen are the ones that run the shit.
Unless they were on the shelf, they were always a threat.
Right. So, yeah. So what I wanted to pose to you.
Yes.
And this is a wrestling match that is always in my mind because I remember watching it and being absolutely blown away, and it's what really helped solidify Macho Man as being one of the greatest wrestlers I've ever watched wrestle. Him versus Ricky Steamboat.
Oh, classic.
Literally probably the greatest actual just singular wrestling match of all time for me.
And I know a lot of guys like Steamboat. I was never a huge fan. I was one of those people. I was never a huge fan of Shawn Michaels. I was never a huge fan of Bret Hart.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you I was a huge fan of Shawn Michaels. I liked Bret Hart, but I always thought he was too smug for me.
Yeah. I just thought he was... I didn't see much special in him.
That's the excellence of execution, bro.
To me, like, when it came to pure work, like, of course... Hennig was great, but, like, nobody's allowed to say his name anymore, but Benoit.
Oh, yeah, Benoit was, an absolute maniac, regardless of what happened at the end.
Right.
Hey, Eddie Guerrero was fucking amazing.
Eddie Guerrero was great. But I always preferred guys like that.
Right.
I wasn't a big Brett fan. I wasn't a big Shawn Michaels fan. You know, I didn't hate him. I just wasn't like everybody's like, oh, they're the greatest. They're the greatest. Like
nah, they're not. They're not even in my conversation.
Yeah,
they're not even in my conversation. Now, if you want to just talk about like personalities, transcendent personalities, you got Stone Cold and The Rock, who have lived on 20 years beyond their means, and if they showed up tomorrow at a wrestling show, they would get a pop.
Oh, for sure. And The Rock deserves extra because, number one, that dude was absolutely hysterical, and he still is.
Fucking amazing.
But that dude has managed to build himself into something so much larger than the wrestling business.
Yeah.
Like, that dude just shits solid gold at this point.
Yo, so as a kid, my mom would ask me questions. Well, not a kid, I guess late teens or early 20s or whatever. And like The Rock was so transcendent at that point, whenever he was sort of like 98 through 2001 at that time frame. You know, I'd be talking to my mom and I'd be like, well, what do you think of this? And she'd be like, well, it doesn't matter what you think. And I'll still do it now. And she's like, God, this will never go away. And I'm like, no, it won't, because The Rock was so fucking funny back then. The people's eyebrow, the people's elbow. Yep. You know, it doesn't matter. And you know what's funny?
He still does it because he just posted a video the other day. I don't know what was going on, but he was walking past. I don't know if they were filming a commercial or something. PK Subban, the hockey player, and he's walking past. I think it was PK Subban, and he's walking past, and he's like, "Hey, PK, how you doing?" And PK's like, "It doesn't matter how you're doing," as he just keeps walking up the block. Oh my God, I was in tears laughing. It was great.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect.
And you just hear everybody just howling all around because they weren't expecting it.
Yeah,
so good.
Straight up, The Rock seems like a guy that if you take all the bullshit out of him being a superstar and you're just talking about the person, I feel like even though I could never match him on his drive to do all the things that he does, because clearly to have that physique at his age right now and still maintain a Hollywood this, that, and the other thing, like, that dude is super driven.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he's the guy that I could also sit down and just have a fucking funny ass conversation with. Like, he seems like exactly who he is. Like, there's no bullshit about it. Like, sure, everybody that's a star is probably an asshole in some way, but you pull them into a situation where they're not forced to talk to you.
Right.
And you just somehow strike up a friendship. He seems like a guy that would be a good friend to have.
Yeah, and you know, he's got, like what I said before about respect to hustle. Like, that dude hustles nonstop. All the different business things he's involved in, he's constantly keeping it moving and constantly doing stuff and making moves. And I mean, that dude is going to run for president.
At some point, he's going to, and he's going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, but it's going to happen, and so it's unavoidable.
Somewhere I heard. Oh, it was in that thing I had you listen to, the conservative talking point guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he said right now that the only person that could pull this whole country together would be Oprah. Do you remember that from his statement?
No, because I would probably laugh my ass off.
But his statement is that she has so much respect from both sides, specifically from women, that she's the only person that, regardless of whether you're Republican or you're Democrat, that people would just vote for her no matter what, and there isn't much to have against her when it comes down to not about politics, not about like, is she fit for the job, is she not, but is she an actual like reasonable person? Like, everybody, not me, not necessarily you, would have very minimal argument as compared to, you know, Trump, let's say, if you're talking about a celebrity. But I feel the same way about The Rock. So many people love The Rock.
Yeah, I think he's such a likable dude that I think a lot of people.
Hell, if you
I mean, let's be real. It's, you know, all this political stuff is mostly a popularity contest anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, you know, the guy is popular, but also he's down to earth. He's not popular like Donald Trump.
Right.
You know,
but where I'm going with that is, if you told me right now, Biden's not going to make it, and we're re-switching it, everybody's got to redo their vote, but on top of the ticket is The Rock. So it's The Rock versus Trump. I'm going to vote for The Rock. Because, You know what? I feel like because he knows nothing, he will listen to the experts in the room and make good decisions. And I already know he knows how to form clear sentences and actually go out and be a diplomat of some sort and actually like do the thing that he's supposed to do.
And he's not a dick.
Right.
He's not going to sit there and rile people up about bullshit and lie through his teeth.
Yeah.
You know?
Please get him in there at this point. I don't care anymore.
You know, yeah. I don't even want to get started on more political bullshit. Next question.
So, all right. I want to skip to this question.
Go for it.
Who are some movie star non-starters for you?
Ooh.
So what I mean by that is someone you see is in a movie and you automatically go, fuck no, I'm not watching that because X, Y, and Z is in this movie.
Oh, I got a few of them. Jack Black.
Okay.
With Tropic Thunder being the only exception.
Mm-hmm.
Seth Rogen. Can't stand him.
I don't have a problem with Seth Rogen, but Jack Black, I don't mind it because, I mean, whatever. I understand why you don't like him. I understand. But for me, he's not on my list.
Okay. And I'll give you another one, and I actually tried to power through something with him recently, and I did enjoy it, but it would have been much more enjoyable if it was somebody else, and that's James Franco. Seth Rogen's butt. He did that thing that was on Hulu a while ago that I never got to watch, and I watched recently, which was whatever. It's got numbers. It was based on a Stephen King book about Kennedy,
mm-hmm.
and like time travel and all this stuff. 11 something, I forgot. But it was, you know, an adaptation of a Stephen King book. And 11/22/63. And it's about a guy that time travels and tries to stop the Kennedy assassination. Mm-hmm. And James Franco is the main guy. And I watched it and I did enjoy it, but I felt like it would have been so much better if somebody else was in that role instead.
I can feel that. So
there's three guys right off the top of my head.
So, off the top of my head, Jack
and I'll
Black.
give you one more, by the way, just because.
Sure.
Adam Sandler.
Okay. I will agree with you as long as we're talking about Adam Sandler post Happy Gilmore. If we're talking about Adam Sandler in in Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore, and when he was on SNL before all that happened.
Waterboy was when he started to go sour.
Yeah, Waterboy I don't like, and I don't like anything. Basically, I don't like anything after Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Waterboy was when he started to go sour for me, and after that, can't fuck with anything he's involved.
It's just not good. Not good.
Little Nicky, shit.
Yeah. Big Daddy.
These other things, all this Netflix stuff that he does, shit.
Shitty. So, all right. Adam Sandler did not make my list. I only have a list of 3 right now.
Okay.
But Jack Black is number 2 on the list. But since you brought him up, Jack Black, there are 2 movies that I can take him in, and that's High Fidelity, and he's only saved because of John.
Okay, I still have never seen High Fidelity. I need to change that because a few people have said to me, and you're one of them, but a few people have said to me that I need to see that movie. So I'm gonna rectify that in quarantine.
So I love John Cusack. Like pretty much all the movies he's been in, I just enjoy it. I think he's quirky, whatever. And that movie is quirky, and I enjoy it despite the fact that Jack Black is in it. Secondarily, he was also in Biodome, and how much trouble can you get in a bubble? So I
honestly, I didn't even know he was in either one of those movies.
So it's actually Tenacious D in Biodome.
Oh, that's even worse.
So, but I don't think it's the band. It's just him playing Tenacious D. Like, that's his character. But I don't even remember him being in it, but I know he's in the movie because, like, very quick flash, I know he's in the movie.
Right.
So, otherwise, Jack Black can kiss my entire whole ass, including the hole and everything. Like, this guy sucks. But my number one, I am not watching your movie if this guy is in there, Ben Affleck. I cannot fuck with Ben Affleck. He incites just pure horror, terror, and torture on my soul anytime I see him, except in Dazed and Confused,
right?
Because I feel like he's playing himself. That character is him, at least who I expect him to be.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then on the flip side, he's in Mallrats, and he's playing basically the elder version of that character in Dazed and Confused.
Right.
So, like, I'm fine with him in both of those because I don't think it's a stretch for him. He's not even acting. So, otherwise, if you've got Ben Affleck in your movie, I am not and will not watch your movie. And then
I'm indifferent towards him, by the way.
Why are you indifferent towards him?
I don't hate him. I don't necessarily really enjoy him. I have seen him in a bunch of movies that were terrible, but it was a script that was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like any of the stuff where he's playing Batman is fucking awful, but it's not his fault because it was the shit. And the same thing went to that movie that he was in.
He fucking sucks.
But
he sucks because he sucks. Those Batman movies suck because of him, not because of the script. It's because of him. And I don't care what you have to say. It's because Ben Affleck sucks. That dude is just a wet rag in the corner stinking.
Oh, man.
So, number 3 on my list is probably a little bit weird of a choice, but if I see his face, I want to punch it. And it's Liev Schreiber.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, can't fucking stand that guy. Never could. Immediately, as soon as I see he's in a movie or in a TV show, I am not watching it. I don't care how good you tell me it is. So, like, he was in that show Ray Donovan, and a bunch of people were telling me, yo, Ray Donovan's a great show. Watch it, watch it, watch it. I think I got 10 minutes into the first episode. I was like, I can't fucking watch this. I can't even look at this fucking guy.
Never watched it.
So, He's been in 100 things over the years, and none of it's like huge, but he's, the biggest thing was him as Cotton Weary in Scream, and that's probably what started my hate of him. Was 1996, so almost 25 years ago, he came into my viewing pleasure as a displeasure, and I've hated him since I saw his dumbass face in that dumbass movie. And then I sat through Scream 2, which was one of the biggest mistakes of my entire life, because that movie's terrible. And ever since then, I just won't watch anything he's in, and that continues straight to this day. So he's got a list of stuff out here. I'm like on his IMDb, and there's things that I know I probably should have watched, and I won't watch it because I know he's fucking in it, and I don't want to see him.
Yeah, he's another one I'm indifferent about. I've seen him in a bunch of different movies, and some of them were cool. Some of them I didn't care about. I never watched Ray Donovan. That's another one of those that everybody's telling me, oh, you got to see it, you got to see it. And it's just like, I'm watching other shit.
So
like,
how about
maybe
this?
Someday I'll get to it, but I'm not in a rush.
An actor you once liked that you no longer like.
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
Because I have one. So I'll go just to give you some
go
time
ahead, because honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
Jim fucking Carrey. So I loved him in Living Color, but I was also young at the time. And then, Ace Ventura was funny, but then The Mask came out, and I was like, ugh, this is fucking painful. And then I guess it's kind of like the Adam Sandler thing where it's like, you started off okay, and then now you just betrayed me. And you've betrayed me every single time since then.
Yeah. It's weird because I would probably have to say off the top of my head, Adam Sandler's the only one that I can really think of that
that you could start
dislike,
in.
That I dislike that much.
Mm-hmm.
Because, there's a lot of people that I'm indifferent to. Like some of them, it's like, all right, some of them, whatever. But Adam Sandler, yeah, I did enjoy some of the earlier stuff. And, Happy Gilmore and stuff like that. And then he just went completely in the shitter.
So what I'll say is I had no expectations for Dumb and Dumber 2 when it came out. So this is 2014. So damn near 10 years ago almost at this point. That was the first time in a long time that I actually enjoyed Jim Carrey in a thing. And really, I think it comes down to the fact that his play off of Jeff Daniels in that movie, or either movie, like Jeff playing the straight guy so well,
right,
to Jim Carrey's like weirdo stupid character, it makes it work. But if you had just given me a movie with just Jim Carrey with no Jeff Daniels, I would have hated both movies.
Yeah, I guess I could throw Jim Carrey in there also because he's definitely somebody that, as time went on, just wasn't interested in what he was doing anymore.
At all.
Just totally lost.
Just totally fell apart.
And yeah, Adam Sandler was the same thing. It's like, another one of his movies.
It's the exact. Adam Sandler makes the exact same movie over and over again.
Oh, it's terrible.
And it's never better. It's always worse.
No, it's horrible. It's just not. Like I said, Waterboy was when he was starting to lose it. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that in a movie theater. And then after that,
I saw it in the theater. It was really bad.
Ugh.
Really bad.
But yeah, I would have to say I would agree with you on those two. Yeah, and I couldn't really give you another name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't have any female actors where I'm automatically like, no. I mean, Amy Schumer, but she's just bad all around. We don't even need to get into any further than me saying her name because.
Well, I'll give you another one, a male, but he's no longer with us. But I could not give a shit about Chris Farley.
Okay, so I enjoyed Chris Farley on SNL. I thought he was funny on the show.
And there's a connection that I'll draw in a minute, by the way, as to why I thought of Chris Farley.
Well, because it's an Adam Sandler movie.
Well, no, it goes back to the female thing that you asked, and I'll tie that all together in a minute.
Okay, well, I mean, honestly, the two biggest movies that Chris Farley was in were Black Sheep and what's the other one? Tommy Boy. And they're literally just the exact same thing as Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. It's the same fucking movie, just with somebody different. Yeah. So, like, once you get past the fact that it's just dumb slapstick comedy, there's nothing to it besides the cheap laughs.
Right.
And, like, I'm good with the cheap laughs. Like, they wanted to make him be somewhere between Belushi and John Candy, but he was too flawed of a character to do either one, and he ended up just fizzling out. Like, it's better that he died when he did, because he would have everybody would hate him at this point. Like, people still love him because he left so soon. Mm-hmm. If he had stayed around making bad movie after bad movie,
he would have worn out his welcome.
Yep. So it's better that he burnt out early.
Yeah. Well, the connection that I drew is because while I did enjoy Bridesmaids, mm-hmm. Melissa McCarthy is the new Chris Farley. Like, hey, I'm fat, I'm gonna throw myself around. Like, she's not even the funniest part of that movie. No, she's not. But she's the one, so many people talk about her, and I think she's not. And Rebel Wilson is another one that kind of goes in that direction. It's like, like Chris Farley. It's like the whole gimmick is I'm fat and I throw myself around. It's like I need a little more than that, Yep. Like that gimmick is tired of shit to me.
So, I've had this conversation a few times. Mm-hmm. I'm not big on female directed stand-up comedy. Like, I believe that it's probably funny if you have the right frame of mind for it. So, like, I don't have the experience of being a woman, so a lot of these women jokes don't do anything for me. So they just go by me, and I don't laugh because I don't have the frame of reference to find it funny. But for women, they do find it funny. Now, what I will say is, you give me a funny woman in, like, a comedic performance in a movie, you give me Maya Rudolph, or you give me Amy Poehler, or like some of these girls that are really, really fucking funny, but it's in a movie and they're actually acting and pulling these things off. I am fucking on board.
Yeah,
because like Bridesmaids is hilarious because the two main characters, Maya Rudolph and the girl from, I don't remember what she's from, blonde girl. Regardless, doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. Their interplay as two characters in this movie is absolutely hilarious. And there are some really funny scenes in this fucking movie.
Right.
So,
Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig, that's it.
Who was also on Saturday Night Live.
So, it's like when people talk about that Ghostbusters movie that was made with the all women. I didn't watch that movie because it didn't look like it was going to be funny.
No.
It had nothing to do with if you had given me 4 dudes with that exact same movie, I'm not watching that movie. It has nothing to do with the women. You didn't make a movie that looked funny. If you couldn't cut together a promo to go on TV or go on YouTube that makes me think I might enjoy myself at this, I'm not going. And it has nothing to do with the sex of the people who are playing in it.
Right.
Because there are a lot of movies where dudes are in it, and I was like, not going to see that because it looks really bad.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that movie because I had no interest in that movie. I've never seen it, but Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live is in that movie.
I love Kate McKinnon,
and I think she's fucking hysterical.
She's great.
Think she needs, she's one of those people that just needs that breakout role,
and then she'll be huge.
And I think she would, she'd be out there just as much as somebody like Kristen Wiig.
Yep.
She's just got to have that
absolutely hilarious.
Role. Yeah, I think she's ridiculously funny. I just don't think that she's had that right.
Nobody's written the right role for her.
Yeah, she hasn't had that springboard to help her get to the next level. And it's harder now because it used to be, Saturday Night Live was the springboard itself, but now there's so many ex-Saturday Night Live people.
It's too late now.
That are all just known for that, and that's it.
Yep.
Because how many of these Adam Sandler movies are just a bunch of Saturday Night Live people?
Yeah, just nah.
Yeah.
Nah. So, what's a music hot take for you right now?
There's the classic, which is that I think the Beatles are highly overrated.
So we have the same hot take. So nice. This is a terrible question.
Well, that one is the most obvious because to me, and I'm curious how much of this you agree with. I think a lot of the things that the Beatles get credit for, that credit is due to someone else.
Well, it's credit to the fucking Beach Boys, baby.
The Beach Boys when it comes to the recording stuff, and just when it comes
to the harmonies, to the multiple people singing on a record, to everything. Like the Beatles will tell you straight out that they listened to the goddamn Beach Boys before they wrote all those records that were so big.
But I also think just when it comes to songwriting, I related a lot more to, not that I'm a tremendous fan of either of these bands, but to me, The Who and the Rolling Stones were way higher on my list than anything the Beatles did. And then, of course, Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. But from that era, it's like, I just don't get it.
See, to me, the Beatles are like barbecue sauce. You can't get to the barbecue sauce if you didn't get the ketchup. You got to get the ketchup first. And the Beach Boys and other bands are the ketchup. And then you want to add in the popularity sprinkle of flavor, then you get some fucking barbecue sauce. It's just another way to get the same thing in. I feel like people just fell in love with them. They were basically the first boy band.
Right.
And yeah, they were playing music, but even if you ask around, they weren't actually playing on their records. At least not at the beginning.
Right. There were a couple other people involved. I don't know.
It's basically a Milli Vanilli situation for me.
I don't know if I go that far, but it just doesn't really interest me. But also, I just don't. Like I said, I think the credit is due in other directions, way more than for them.
I wrote down some of the answers to some of these questions just to make sure that I had answers on the top of my mind. And what I wrote on the piece of paper here says the Beatles can kick every rock they can find. So to qualify it, Hard Day's Night and two other songs I do actually like. I like the songs, but I don't like the band. It's okay to like a song from a band that you don't like. Like it's totally fine, at least in my opinion. Like I can't write off every single song they ever wrote, but as a whole, I care zero about this band. And if they never existed, I wouldn't mind.
I don't hate them. There's other bands that I hate. We could talk about The Offspring. Or not. I'd rather not.
I don't ever want to talk about The Offspring. Can we just forget they exist?
I would like to make it so they don't exist. No, I don't hate the Beatles. Once again, like what we were talking about with actors, I'm very indifferent. Like, I just don't get what the big deal is.
I think the thing that killed me on the Beatles is the fact that I didn't hear them until I was probably almost 20. So when I found, like, I'm sure I heard it,
right?
But I wasn't like focused on, oh, who is singing this thing. I was working at Best Buy, and they had some like big box set release, and I mean, we sold so many of these fucking box sets, and like I just didn't get it. And like we would open it and play it in the store, and I was like, all of this just sounds fucking terrible, turn it off. Growing up in my house, we listened to funk, we listened to rap, and we listened to R&B. Right. We didn't listen to the Beatles. We didn't listen to the Rolling Stones. I mean, I heard a couple Rolling Stones songs over the years because my mom like knew who they were, obviously, and I'm sure she knew who the Beatles were, but she didn't like the Beatles. And my dad definitely didn't like the Beatles. He was a fuck the Beatles kind of guy. Well, he is a fuck the Beatles kind of guy. Like, he wanted that fucking R&B and funky shit. That's what was played at my house. Or jazz. That's it. Like, that's what I was hearing all the time. And then when I grew up and I started listening to my own music, so when we're talking like 10 years old, I started listening to hip-hop, like full-on hip-hop, and I started listening to rock and roll. So we're talking hair metal, we're talking Guns N' Roses, you know, and right on down the line, and that led me into hardcore and punk and metal, like, and all that shit. So I didn't like 100% sit down and hear the Beatles until it was way later. Like, I heard the fucking Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson song "Say Say Say" long before I knew he was in the Beatles. I had no idea. I just knew he was Paul McCartney.
Right.
It meant absolutely zero to me.
Yeah, same thing for me. But I just, you know, when you talk about that era, I feel like there's so much more that was influential from that time than the Beatles, to me. I mean, they kind of ended, like, they overlapped just a little bit at the end with the beginning of Led Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. But you had Cream, another band that I think doesn't get enough credit. But, you know, you had everything going on with the Beach Boys and Pet Sounds, and you had the Stones and the
listeners,
Who.
If you've made it this deep into the show, we're about 3 hours into the show now, and if you've never sat down and listened to the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, put on a pair of headphones. Just give it the 40 minutes that it actually is, and just sit down and listen to the record. And then when you're done, listen to it one more time and just pay even more attention. Don't fool around on your phone. Don't watch TV while you're trying to enjoy this record. Just chill out and listen to this fucking record.
Give it your undivided attention.
And be blown away at what the fuck they did in the late 60s putting together this record that has almost probably been unmatched at this point for texture, for dynamics. It's one of the greatest recordings of all time. Go listen to it.
Yeah, I think that record does not get enough credit, and it's lopsided. Everybody gives the Beatles all this credit, you know, for recording techniques and this and that, and it's like
they were just mimicking.
Yeah, they were just mimicking what the Beach Boys did.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Elvis Presley. I mean, he was just taking what black artists were doing it and making it palatable to white artists. Well, to the white fan base. That's all it was. Like, I take nothing away from him. He did what he had to do. And, you know, his record label and managers and whatever got him set up so that, you know, everybody absolutely loved him. But it wasn't really his work.
Right.
So it is what it is.
And I think with the Beatles, it was just, you know, like I said, there were so many other artists around that time that, to me, were more influential than the Beatles, whether it's Hendrix or Blue Cheer or Cream, like I mentioned. Like, there's so many other artists doing different things there that, like, the Beatles was like, I don't, like I said, I don't hate them, but I just don't see the big deal. And it's the same way I feel about a lot of other stuff. Just, you know, whether it was the actors we were talking about, I feel the same way about Nirvana.
Okay, I do like Nirvana, but
I don't hate them.
I would rather listen to Alice in Chains.
Yeah, I don't hate them.
I would rather listen to Soundgarden.
They got a couple of okay songs, but to me, there's plenty of other stuff that I'd rather, not only that I'd rather listen to, but that I see as more influential. To me, you know, Nirvana broke through, but I see a lot more content in Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, like you mentioned, and Pearl Jam, and go back and listen to Mother Love Bone.
Yo, Pearl Jam, the first two records of Pearl Jam are perfectly good records. Like, whether you like them as people or you dislike them, you dislike their tactics, whatever, those first two records are still listenable records.
Right.
At this moment. What I will say is that when Nirvana broke and then they went back in and did their final record, I think In Utero is a much better record and a much more accurate picture of what kind of band they really are than Nevermind. Nevermind is way more polished than they truly were as a band.
Right.
So
I could see that.
For me, if I'm gonna listen to Nirvana, I'm listening to In Utero. It's either that or Bleach. Like, I don't really listen to the record that was huge.
Right.
Because A, it's played out. B, I just don't really love it that much. I liked it at the time, but looking back, I can see that it's not like actually them. It's their producer.
Right. It's just, you know, like I said, for me, it's an indifference. Like, I'm like, it's like, it doesn't excite me, but I also don't hate it. It's just kind of
The band that I think is the best band from that era, that nobody gives a shit about is Screaming Trees. I think that they're probably the best band from that whole thing, but it's about the voice with the songwriting, with like everything. I think that they actually had it,
right,
but they didn't have the personality or the connections or something. There was something behind the scenes that was missing that made it so that they just didn't have a chance. Because it's hard to compete with Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains. Like, you already had three. And then if you go a little bit further, you got L7, who are the women that took over and did their thing from that whole general scene.
Yeah, that was a whole other setup.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, you had L7, you had Babes in Toyland, and then you had Hole, and that was like that scene.
Right. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Screaming Trees really, so I don't have an opinion. To me, I mean, we could do a whole other show just talking about the whole Seattle scene, because to me, the thing that broke it out was the thing that kind of I don't want to say ruined it, but the thing that really was the toughest part, which was Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone dying, which is what turned into Temple of the Dog and everything else. But
that's what turned into Alice in Chains Wood.
Right. And I love Mother Love Bone. I thought they were a great band. They could have done great things, and it was a shame.
Yep.
But, you know, with the way those events all turned out, I can't really see it happening another way.
Yeah, it had to happen that way for everything to go the way that it went.
If Andrew Wood hadn't died, none of this stuff would have happened the way it did.
Right.
And I don't know how it would have ended up happening, you know?
It may not have at all.
Yeah, it could be that they ended up never doing anything. That Seattle never got what it got. So who knows?
Rest in peace, Andrew Wood.
Yeah. It's crazy. And like I said, one day I would love to do a show just about that, because there's so much history there that a lot of people probably don't even realize unless you've watched like a Behind the Music or something.
Right.
You know, the Pearl Jam all came out of that. And
yeah, I mean, I could definitely do a whole conversation on that. I was just saying not tonight. We're already way too deep tonight.
No, definitely not tonight. And I think, we've only got a couple more questions to bang out, and then give everybody a break.
This next question is actually going to be really short because you have no dog in this race, and I'm just going to blast out my top 5, and we're going to move on from it. So the next question was posed to me: what is the best third wave ska record?
Nope, I'm out.
Gary's out, so he's not going to answer at all. And I will answer. What'd you say?
Cause of death.
Cause of death. Yeah.
Oh.
Wait.
Get it.
Number one, is that even late 90s? No, I think that's 92 or 94. Anyway, regardless, so my top 5 90s ska records, and one of these is definitely not late 90s, but it's still a 90s ska record. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Don't Know How to Party. I don't care what you have to say, it's a great record. I don't care if it's 92, I think it's from 93. That's late enough in the 90s for me for it to count for this question, because it's one of the most important records in that scene to come out. Number 2, Real Big Fish, Turn the Radio Off. Fun record. Goldfinger, self-titled. Suicide Machines, Destruction by Definition. And Pie Tasters, Ooh Loo Loo. Those are my top 5. I don't need to qualify anything beyond that. If you want to have a conversation about it, hit me up directly. I don't need to drag Gary into this buck.
Don't Know How to Party was 93.
Yeah, so I don't care that it's 93. It's close enough. It wasn't in 1990.
Since I have nothing else to contribute, I'll just fact check.
All right. So yeah, those are the 5 records that if you held the gun to my head and said you can only take 5 ska records, I could listen to all 5 of these straight through with no fucking fear. And that's it.
Interesting.
So Gary, what's the dumbest shit you've ever seen on stage?
Oh man, I don't know what qualifies as dumb. I'll tell you some funny things. I've seen a few people fall on stage. I've never fallen on stage myself. Martin from Billy Club was really drunk one time and had to be helped on stage and off. And I was really pissed at him for it. It was really bad. At the time. But it was some stupid shit. Trying to think, like what qualifies as stupid. Here's another funny one for you. I saw Neglect one time at the Bond Street Cafe. And if you know about Neglect, Brian from Neglect, the singer, used to cut himself on stage. He once at Wetlands broke a bottle over his own head and knocked himself out. I wasn't there. I heard about it. But he had a razor blade, and at Bond Street, he cut himself, and then he threw the razor blade, and it got lost in the drums, and he spent like the last 3 songs like searching for it.
Oh, Jesus.
Like he's singing, but he's like trying to like move
dig
stuff around and find it, and he never found it.
That's somebody now has hepatitis because of him.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty funny. Other than that, I don't know. I haven't seen anything ridiculously stupid that I could think of. Maybe me in a Santa outfit at a Mickey's Cruise show, popping a Vicodin on stage in a Santa outfit.
So for me, and this has nothing to do with anybody personally. I like everybody in the band, but Bad Luck 13 Riot Extravaganza.
Alright, we know it's going to be good.
At either one, whether you're talking about 2004 at Hellfest, or their one appearance at This Is Hardcore, I think, which was in like 2015 or 16.
Right.
And like literally everybody was trying to recreate what was seen on the 2004 DVD, and you cannot recreate that. So either you want to take the original or the facsimile. It doesn't matter. Both of them, and it has nothing to do with the band or anybody on stage. It's everybody else around them acting the fool. So that is the dumbest shit I've seen on or off stage at a show. Short of that, it's people stage diving where there is no one to catch them, and then they bounce.
That's always fun.
So like, I mean, I feel bad for them because I don't want anybody to really get hurt, but I also think to myself, hey, you jumped into a spot where there was no one, so what do you get?
I always love seeing people grab the microphone and sing completely wrong lyrics.
Yeah. You know what?
That's
that
always
happened to me
fun.
once. That happened to me once. So
really?
I went to see Darkest Hour, and they were playing at the Troc, and I thought they kicked into one song, and it turned out they were into a different song, and I was like, and I was like, oh, sorry, and I handed the mic back to the singer, because I thought they kicked into Hidden Hands of a Sadist Nation, and they kicked into something else. And I was like,
it back because you knew you were fired.
Yeah, I was like, here you go. Wah, wah, wah. It was basically the music, the music from The Price is Right played. It
doesn't count, by the way, if the singer shoves the microphone into your face, because I've had that happen to me a few times.
No. I actually went up front.
Yeah.
And he
gave
it to me, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, if you go for the grab and you blow it, that's on you.
Yeah, I blew it.
But
so that's some dumb shit I did.
There are a few singers that I know that have thrown the microphone into my face, and I'm not prepared, and I'm just like, Armando from Fahrenheit is one of them. Although he was singing for Dominican Day Parade, and he would do that a lot, and I'm sure he caught me once or twice. And then the No Redeeming guys, I'm sure, have done that to me once or twice also. I'll tell you a little bad luck story.
Okay.
Which is a weird one. We played with them in Providence, Rhode Island one time. And a lot of people were very confused because they managed to finish the set.
How does that even happen?
You know how it happens?
Nobody went wild?
No, because it's Providence, Rhode Island, where the Great White Station fire happened. So they weren't allowed to use any pyro.
Right.
And because of that,
the set went off without a hitch.
They just went and kept going, and it was probably the first time in who knows how long that they actually played a full set.
They looked around at each other like, what the fuck happened?
Like, yeah, what do we do now?
Do we have to keep playing songs?
Because we didn't realize that at first, and then when suddenly somebody mentioned it to us, we were like, Oh, okay. And then we were just laughing because it was just so ridiculous. Like, obviously the station fire is a terrible thing, but it was just so funny that, like, here we are actually watching Bad Luck complete a set.
Yeah.
When was the last time this happened?
Almost never.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
So,
final question.
Yes, last question.
Non-music hobbies or interests that you'd like to divulge to the people?
I have many. Maybe you want to start with this first.
Yeah, because I don't have any. Wait. Let me think here. I really enjoy watching movies, but I don't get enough time to do it because of music. And I really enjoy cars. So recently, I actually bought a 2016 Dodge Challenger with the Shaker package. I'm really excited on it. In my driveway, I also have a 2005 GTO with a 6.0 in it. Like, I'm really into muscle cars specifically. My first car was a 69 Le Mans with a 350, and then I turned around and like did a little bit of work to it to make it a little bit louder, a little bit faster, a little bit of this and the other thing. And then I sold it and I bought a 1991 Firebird Formula with a 350 in it, and I fucking tooled around in that for a couple years. Had a Grand Prix GTP. I've had like a couple things along the way, but now I've got 2 certified muscle machines along with the Mazda that I use to take band equipment around in. Wow. I used to have a subscription to Pontiac Power Magazine and, all the fucking Chevy Performance and Mopar. Like, I was really into cars. So it was wrestling magazines, car magazines, movies, listening to music, and then playing music. And, I think, obviously I collect amplifiers now. I don't really collect guitars, but I collect amps because I just enjoy the concept of an amplifier and like how they all sound different. But I guess that's kind of a music hobby.
Are you a mod type of guy when it comes to cars?
Yes and no.
You get under the hood and get deep into it?
My grandfather was the first black master mechanic for the state police.
Oh, wow.
And he ran the state police barracks. He was the head foreman there for, I don't know, like 20 years. So he also ran his own shop in Trenton. And I would spend, all Saturday there, at least once a month, learning how to fix something on a car. So can I tinker? Sure. Do I want to? No. I don't really want to be under a car like that, especially not if it's not on like a lift. If you put it on the lift and I can really get things, sure, but I'm not really trying to wrench in my goddamn driveway.
Okay. I know some guys are like that they're buying parts online and swapping shit out and doing all this other shit.
That was mid-90s for me.
Okay.
Once I got into buying amplifiers and guitars, I stopped buying and I stopped focusing on cars, but I'm starting to lean back towards cars because, hey, there's no shows to play anyway, so I might as well do something else I enjoy. But right now I'm just enjoying driving a car that has a lot of power. It sounds really cool when you're driving it, but, it's just another outlet. It's something else to do with my time, my money, my whatever. So, yes, that's probably all my non-music interest. And food. So cooking, like, I run a smoker in my backyard, grilling, sous vide machine, using the fucking pressure cooker, whatever. Like, if you throw it at me, I'll figure out how to make it work and make something taste fucking delicious in it. I also like to bake. Like, I make cakes and pies and all kinds of shit. And I like it because it's so precise. It's like it's like science.
Right.
So I got somewhat of an analytical, scientific mind. So the idea that if I get all my ingredients correct, the thing that I'm trying to make will most likely turn out correctly. So I enjoy baking on occasion. And That's pretty much it.
Not to call you out on something, but Uh, I mean, when it comes to your studio, didn't you build a bunch of that stuff yourself?
Sure. My dad. So I took shop in school, and I understand how to measure and cut. There are certain tools that I don't have, so like when it came to doing the framing, I paid a guy to do the framing.
Right.
But I did the design with my friend Jeremy. We went back and forth on spacing, measuring, what would be the most efficient use of the space that I had. And then I was there and helping or physically building pretty much every step of the way. I did all the installation. I did all the electrical installation. I did all the audio wiring installation. I did pay a team of sheetrockers to come in and do sheetrock, because they did my entire place in a day, and it would have taken me like 3 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
Like, sheetrocking is just something that if you're really good at it, you can just do it. And for me, I'm not really good at it. If you've got like a hole in the wall, I can fix the hole in the wall. But if you wanted me to do a whole room, it would take me a whole day to do something. It would take somebody like 15 minutes to
Right.
So there are certain things where you pay somebody to do it, and then there are certain things you do yourself. So, I've been hands-on with a large portion of the building, or at least the designing and planning of Landmine Studios. So when you come in, it's all either designed by me or made by me or both.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because you definitely deserve the credit, having stepped into Landmine and looked at it, and it's like, it's a tremendous amount of work that goes in there, and it speaks to, how you operate the studio, and what kind of operation you're running there.
So one of the things that happened to me, and this is just a side note, when I was working for BlackRock / Merrill Lynch, they're investment firms. I'm sure people have heard of Merrill Lynch before. One of my managers said something to me, and I still hear it in my head all the time. And he goes, "I call you 80%. And I'm like, "What do you mean, boss?" They're like, his name was Dan. I'm like, "What do you mean, Dan?" And he's like, "Look, if I want to get something 80% of the way there, I give it to you. And then I'll take the other 20% because I know you'll never finish it." And so that's the thing that rings in my head every time I do anything at this point. I say, okay, make 80% 100%. So whatever it is that you want to do, imagine it 100%. Like, imagine that whatever is at 100% is 80% of the way. Because if I'm only going to do 80%, I'm going to do 100% of, if I hit 100%, that means I'll have gone beyond what I actually planned to do.
Right.
So, I would say right now I'm at like 75% at the studio. There are 2 projects that I have to finish, and both of them are in progress. I just need like 2 days to finish them, and then I will literally be done.
Cool.
So it's just about finding a few minutes to just tighten it up. Hopefully I can get it there soon. So what about you? Some non-music hobbies?
Well, we talked about pro wrestling a lot, which is a big thing for me. I watch a lot of pro wrestling, and I used to go to live shows every now and again, and I want to do that more. COVID, unfortunately, is not making that easy right now. Most of the shows are happening in other states. But eventually, when things calm down and get back to normal, I want to go to more shows, because I used to go to a lot of wrestling shows like we were talking about with ECW and Ring of Honor and stuff like that, and that's something that I really enjoy. Besides that, I consume, and we've talked about it on here also, I consume a tremendous amount of science fiction between movies and books and stuff like that. Like, I could do a whole show just talking about Planet of the Apes and the social commentary of that. We've talked about Star Wars a bit, and that's another big one for me. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And then in other directions, once again, things we've touched on just a little bit, I am really into the history of New York City. I have a sizable book collection that kind of revolves around the history of the city and the subways and things like that. And we've talked a little bit about it, like when we talked about Penn Station and things like that. So that's another thing that I'm heavily into. And also part of that New York City history is that I have a decent sized collection. I used to have a much bigger collection, and I pared it down over the years. I have a decent sized collection of things from the 1964-65 World's Fair, which took place in Queens.
Yeah, where they have if you drive by on the highway, you can see
right
all the stuff. Well, all the structures that are left.
Well, everybody would recognize the New York Pavilion, which was in the Men in Black movies.
Yes.
And there's a different thing to it because when I was a kid, I used to go to Disney World a lot, and the history of that World's Fair ties in heavily with Disney because Disney created a bunch of the exhibits at the fair, and they were all funded by the sponsors, like General Motors sponsored this, and General Electric sponsored that, and Ford sponsored another one. And so basically Disney developed all of these things using their money, and then he turned around and flipped them and put them in his theme parks. So It's a Small World originally appeared at that World's Fair.
Right.
And then when they opened Walt Disney World in 71, I think it was, It's a Small World was there, and other stuff like the Carousel of Progress and things like that. So, it ties in with all of that. So it's really interesting to see that lineage. And it's also cool if you ever go there, because a lot of those structures, like the New York Pavilion that we talked about, are still there. So it's like all this stuff from
What's the condition of those things at this point, though?
Well, they actually recently got money to fix up the New York Pavilion because it was in such a bad state of disrepair that they either had to get money to fix it or take the fucking thing down.
Right, because and nobody wants to be taken
parts of it
down.
were going to fall on someone's head.
Right, that's what I was getting at, because, as you said, it's 64-65, so, it couldn't have been, if they hadn't been keeping up with the maintenance on it,
and they weren't.
They had to be in severe disrepair.
It was in really bad shape, and they managed to get money in the city budget to give it a new paint job and do some repairs because, like I said, the thing was getting to the point where they were going to have to tear it down if they couldn't get it sorted out.
Right.
There's a lot of history to it that inside that round part of that building, well, there used to be, the towers had like a snack bar, and then there was one of them was like a VIP area. Mm-hmm. And part of what they were worried about was the elevators, because all that stuff had just been sitting there rotting away
forever.
It's like one of these elevators, somebody sneaks in, elevator's going to fall on them.
Yep.
Because I will tell you that when I was in high school, I did sneak into that building. Which is kind of what started my interest in it, to be honest with you. Because I didn't really know much about it before then. But yeah, they got that money, and there's other buildings that were part of that World's Fair that are still in operation also. But that one is the big one because there's a lot of history to it. A weird little bit of history that I'll share with you is that in the big round area on the floor used to be a giant map of New York State.
Really?
And they've since removed most of it to actually fix it, and they're going to renovate it. Like, it started as like a college project, like some engineering school or something decided that they were going to make this into a project. So there's still small pieces of it there now, but it's all actually been mostly taken so that they can clean it up. Mm-hmm. Because what happened was originally it was just something that you could walk on, but in the 70s, and it's funny because this came up in the past couple of weeks, because I know you mentioned that you hate the movie The Wiz.
Yep, it was a terrible movie, but
you get a very clear view because they filmed part of it in that structure.
I remember that was my first introduction to even what that was.
Yeah, well, in the 70s they actually used that as a roller rink.
Oh,
so that just fucked up that whole map.
Yeah, I mean, that map is just everybody scraping it up.
The weird thing is that that's what ended up happening in the 70s, but in the late 60s, beginning of the 70s, they were going to move that map. And you know where they were going to move that map?
Where?
They were going to put it in the middle, I think in the lobby of one building of the brand new World Trade Center Twin Towers that they were building.
Well, that would have been...
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But yeah, so, you know, those are a few of, you know, heavy things that I'm interested in. I'm a toy collector also. I have a lot of toys around my house, and that's another thing. I used to have a lot more, and over the years I've kind of parted ways with some of it just for space and, you know, money considerations and things like that. But that's just a few of many different random things that I'm into.
You know, one thing,
music.
One thing I forgot to mention, we've talked about it else other times or elsewhere or whatever. Amusement parks. Though I'm too fat to go right now, I love amusement parks and I love roller coasters. And when I get skinny, I'm going.
Yep. Well, I will join you on that one because I am a big fan. Also, you know, I mentioned Disney, but I used to be when I was younger. Well, when I was younger, I was scared of roller coasters and horror movies, and then at some point something snapped and I dove fully into the deep water with it. And I've been on many coasters, a lot of them that don't exist anymore.
Yeah, most of the coasters that I loved as a kid are long gone.
I was gonna say everything a Great Adventure when I was a kid is all gone now.
Yeah, and all the coasters,
Thunder, lightning loops,
gone. Yeah, lightning loops was so scary because half of the seats didn't even fucking work. You didn't even know if you were staying in the fucking ride.
Yeah, that was...
It wasn't that the ride itself was scary, because the ride itself wasn't scary at all. It was just two loops. Loop backwards, and you're done. But not knowing if you were going to live was the scary part.
That'll do it. Well, have you ever ridden the Cyclone in Coney Island?
Dude. Fucking terrifying.
That's another one. You feel like that thing is going to fall apart right under you.
Yeah, terrifying.
But that's also, I mean, I haven't been able to fit on that thing since the mid-90s because that was
the last time I went on it when I was a kid.
Well, that's a small-ass coaster.
Well, that was my problem was once I got to, like, man size, I could no longer go on Rolling Thunder. Like, not even the size I am now, but, like, once I was actually at, like, my full-grown height, weight, everything, I couldn't go on Rolling Thunder because I couldn't even physically sit down because there's like a barrier in the middle of the seat, and I was like, my hips don't even fit in this. I was like, I gotta get out. So when I was in Texas as a teenager, I actually went on the Texas Cyclone, which was a mimic of the Cyclone in New York City. It was right outside the Astrodome, at Astroworld, which has since been torn down.
Right.
They had the Ultra Twister there, which was at Great Adventure and was moved there before it got moved to wherever it is now. It's some non-Great Adventure,
it's somewhere else. I remember reading about it.
But so in the same summer, I rode the Cyclone and the Texas Cyclone. The Texas Cyclone was not nearly as harrowing because it was built within the last 20 years as compared to the real Cyclone, which was built long before they had any rules around how you build a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah, well, that's like it's not as rough a ride as the Cyclone, but if you ever come around these parts, and we'll go up to Playland up in Rye, the Dragon Coaster is
pretty rough.
Almost as old as the Cyclone. It's definitely not as rough as the Cyclone, but it's an old wooden coaster.
Yeah, I mean that's my thing. I love old wooden roller coasters.
Yeah, it can be a little tough on you.
Well, it's like that time we were both at fucking Hershey Park, the same goddamn weekend, unplanned,
in the winter,
and like my hotel was literally,
and it was fucking snowing.
Yeah, snowing, but like I could see your hotel from my hotel.
Yeah,
that was so random.
That was so ridiculous.
I was like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm in fucking Hershey Park." I'm like, "I'm in Hershey Park. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, I'm at Hershey." You know, spent the day at Hershey. I'm like, "What? You were at Hershey?"
I'm at Hershey.
Like, what hotel are you staying at?
Oh, I'm at whatever.
Like, I sent you the Google Maps screenshot.
Like, it's right.
It's like we're like the hotels are right next door to each other. But yeah, it's snowing. I'm not going over there.
Yeah.
The Dragon Coaster, by the way, was it opened in 1929.
My dad wasn't even born yet. He was born in 1934.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, my mother was born in 1936. So,
really? Your mother was born in 1936? So our parents are basically the same age.
Almost.
Crazy. So that's the last thing I'm going to say about anything.
And by the way, the Ultra Twister is now dismantled.
It is it dismantled?
It was in Six Flags Astro World. I mean, listen, we forgot to mention. You know, you brought up the amusement park thing, which I forgot to mention. I'm one of these dudes that'll sit there and watch.
Oh, I watched that on
YouTube about the history of roller coasters, and I'll sit there and watch the roller coaster ride through and all this shit. So I read all these Wikipedia things all the time. Yeah, after Astro World, it was dismantled and brought to Six Flags America in Maryland,
and it just
where it was put in storage, but it is reportedly damaged beyond repair.
Mm.
And it was later removed from the park, so they probably just sold it for scrap.
It probably just rusted to death. Like, to me, damaged beyond repair, and it's in storage. Either the fucking building collapsed on it and ruined some poles, or it just was old and rusted. I mean, it sat at Great Adventure for 3 seasons, and then it went to Texas for like 8 seasons, and then I guess they sold it to Maryland and whatever. But what I was going to say is, your mom is from 1936, my dad's from 1934. When you hear people talk about civil rights, etc., both our parents, in this case, were full-grown adults before my dad was even seen as having rights in America. And when people try to tell me it was so long ago, it actually pains me, because I'm looking at them like, my father was almost the age I am right now.
Yeah.
Before he got to the point where he had what would be considered civil rights. And to tell me it's been that long or forever, sometimes a conversation like this where I find out that your parent is as old as my parent, it's interesting to me, because it's like they lived through a time where it just wasn't this way.
Right.
And for as much as I may rail on things being bad, they certainly are better than they were.
Right.
But, as Malcolm X said, if you stab me 9 inches in, and then you only pull the knife out 3 inches, things aren't better. I'm still stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it doesn't get better until you fully pull the knife out and we fix the wound. Otherwise, things will continue to be bad. I will still die. So, I thank you for joining me on just talking about whatever over the course of these last couple months. It's been super helpful, and I'm glad we're friends, Gary.
It's crazy to think about how long we've been friends, because it's like, it's funny. I was thinking about this when I was listening to a different podcast. It's like, you get to the point at this age and doing this for so long, it's like, there's a lot of people, it's like, you just know them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't even know how you met. Like if you ask me how I met some people, it's like,
I don't fucking know, man.
I don't know, man.
I just met them. I just picked them up along the way.
I could kind of guess at it, but like, there's so many people that I've known for so long that it's just like there. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and it's not disrespect. It's like literally like, you know, me and you, like, we can trace it back, but it's crazy because you still got to kind of sit there and think about it for a second, you know?
Yeah.
But
because there's not one specific moment.
Yeah. Well, it's also, you know, luckily it is easy to look at it and trace it back because we're so clear. But a lot of times it's like, yeah, we're going to shows and like started talking. Like, yep. I don't remember what show we started talking. Like,
that's me and John Wren.
Yeah.
I met him at a couple shows in Philadelphia. I don't know what shows, what year. And then, you know, he got injured at a show in Massachusetts, and I happened to be there, and I helped him and his girlfriend, like, get him back to, like, awake. And, you know, basically since then we've been tight. And it's just like, I knew him from back in Philadelphia. We happened to both be in Massachusetts. I can't let my man just flounder out down here on the floor in a spot where I know he's far from home. Let me help him. And you know, story ain't written yet on how long we'll be friends, but I don't foresee it ending anytime soon.
No, definitely not. But yeah, so we got into a lot of interesting stuff. It's, you know, I personally like talking to people, and we've talked about it a little bit with some of the guests we've had. I like getting into like non-music stuff. Yes. Like, I love the Phil episode where we talked about all the horror stuff, and I didn't even know when I brought it up. I didn't realize that it was going to turn into the conversation that it did. I thought we'd spend 5 minutes on it, but it turned into a whole separate episode, which, you know, listen, that's cool. And I like hearing stuff like that because, yeah, we're always talking about music because that's just kind of what we do. But I like, you know, just like talking to other guys about comic books or about, you know, different stuff. It's like, it's cool. It's different. I like getting a different perspective on people. Obviously, with me and you know, we've talked about a lot of that stuff, but like, hopefully it's cool for people that listen that hear that and don't realize, you know, that we're into stuff like that.
We're real people.
Yeah.
We have other interests.
Yeah. And it's cool because, you know, I also
you know one thing I forgot, dude?
What's that?
I used to be damn near a professional level bowler.
Really?
Yeah, bro.
Holy shit. That's...
Wait. Hold on. Because it's so far out of the range of what I normally do.
Holy shit.
That says, I don't know if you can see it, but it says it's a 300 game.
Wow.
So this one says August 12th, 1997 and September 17th, 1997. So in the course of basically a month, I shot 300 twice. I have another one down here, and this one is an 800 game, 800 series. So on January 28th, 1998, I shot 298, 235, 278 for an 811 series. Which, basically, if you shoot 800, you're in the upper echelon of all bowlers of all time, because only a few people actually do that. So, I've thrown 4 300s, and I've thrown 9 299s, 8 298s, 2 297s, and a 296. And then I shot 279 every week for an entire season. I averaged 234 that season.
I ate a whole pizza once.
I ate a whole pizza this evening.
You got me beat, bro.
I was hyper. So growing up, I lived on a road called Route 31. It's just like a road in my town, and on the road is a bowling alley. It was 10 houses from my house.
Oh wow!
I could easily get my mother to give me the $8 it costs to bowl for an hour every day. $8 to keep me out of trouble for a whole hour, plus the 20 minutes of walking down there carrying bowling balls and 20 minutes of walking back. So you get home from school, you do your work, and then it's 4, and the leagues start at 6, so I could get in there from 4:30 to 5:30.
Yeah.
And then by the time I get home, it's time to eat dinner, and my mom comes home, whatever. So I'm down there bowling. At 16, I joined the adult league because I was too good for the kids league. Me and my best friend Andy, Andy from the show.
Yeah.
I think he has 7 300s.
Wow.
And I think he has 2 800 series. We were the kings of our area. We were 18 and winning entire seasons versus these adults that have been bowling for double our lifetimes, and they just hated us. Just completely. And the best part was, it didn't matter who our third member was, whether it was our friend John, our friend Mike, or somebody else that just happened to get stuck with us. We were winning because we showed up and we were unflappable.
Oh my God.
If I wasn't bowling well, Andy was bowling well that day. And if I was bowling well and he wasn't bowling well, I was carrying it. And then on the days that we were both bowling well together, we were completely unbeatable.
Wow.
So from 18 till 26, we only lost one season. One season. So, and I'm talking, we would win at the end of the season somewhere around $2,000 a person.
Oh my God.
For this team. So you pay $20 a week, pay $20 a week, and by the end of the season, you get all your money back plus then. And everybody in the fucking league hated us. Absolutely hated us. And then we just both quit one day. We were both like, nah, we're not bowling these leagues anymore. We're going to go somewhere else.
Wow.
Just bounced out. So, yes, that is something else wild. That I actually used to enjoy doing that I no longer do. So it's an addendum to my conversation earlier that I totally fucking forgot until you said something and it made me think of it.
That is totally wild. I had no idea.
So, yes.
Learning new things every day.
Pretty much, if I decide I want to do it, I'll be as good as I decide to be at it.
It's an interesting approach.
I know, not trying to toot my own horn, but I've never failed at anything that I've actually attempted to do. There are things where I'm like, I'm interested in trying it, but if I'm just trying it, I'm not really into it.
Right.
This quarantine, and I'll try to end on this, but this quarantine I've decided that I'm learning how to sweep pick, and I'm at the point where I can almost do it. It sounds pretty fucking close, and if I continue to work on it for 10 minutes a day for the remainder of quarantine, when we come out of quarantine, I will be sweep picking like a motherfucker.
Wow. That is something that I cannot do at all.
I could not do it at all at the start of quarantine, but now, trusty pick, always on the desk, right there. and the guitar is right there. I just reach over, and while I'm sitting on meetings with people, I don't really want to talk to or whatever, and I literally just put my microphone on mute, and I just sweep pick through the whole meeting.
Wow.
And at some point, it started to actually sound like sweep picking. So,
I play too hard.
Typically, I do too.
And I don't feel like toning it down.
I just like the sound of sweep picking,
yeah.
So I wanted to learn how to do it. And I just picked it up and I started like... So it's like...
Nice.
I can just go up and down. And I feel comfortable enough to do it in front of an amp at this point. Sometimes I hit it, and sometimes I don't. But by the end of quarantine, I'll have that motherfucker.
Nice. Very interesting.
So.
All right.
Well, I think we've talked enough today.
Yes, we certainly have.
I said let's keep this short.
Well, and what did I say?
You said there's no way.
Like that's going to happen.
And now, 4 hours later.
Hell yeah, exactly. Like, we know better. God damn it. All right.
Honestly, it's the best part of my week. I enjoy the couple hours that we spend just yapping at whatever. I
definitely enjoy it, and even when we don't really have a plan or it comes together late or whatever, it still ends up being very enjoyable for us and hopefully for everybody else. And thank you guys, because I do hear feedback on occasion from certain people and loving what we do and the crazy shit we say, and keep supporting us. And I don't know, what do they say? Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Subscribe. Join the Facebook page. Join the Patreon that we don't have.
Yeah, let's get an OnlyFans.
Oh yeah, join the OnlyFans. It's just gonna be us eating.
Hey, and don't knock my eating. It's very sensual.
It's gonna be eating and saying, "Oh, I hate
I'm so
roller coaster.
I'm so full right now.
I can't ride a roller coaster. I'm just gonna eat more." TheUpgradePodcast.net to find our OnlyFans. I can't even say it with a straight face. God damn it. Yeah, find links to our OnlyFans and Facebook and Grubhub.
Yeah, if you guys want to donate Grubhub, I'm on board.
Yeah, we accept Grubhub gift certificates and just straight up meals. I want to send you a meal. UpgradePodcast.net. That's it. We'll see you soon. Can't wait for this election to be over so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
I want to get to a point where we don't have to even bring it up. I don't even want to have to bring it up again.
Yes. Well, that time is coming soon.
I hope so.
Can't wait. Enjoy, guys. We will speak to you again next week. Peace.
I think next week we're going to have a guest.
I hope so. I'm sick of doing all the talking. Yeah. And I'm sure you are too. Let somebody else do the talking for a little while.
All right. Well, we will catch you later.
Later, guys. 4 fucking hours.